Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Хто воде всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Lviv Street Army sends its regards.
О, бля! Игорь!
Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 334 of the news and another night of fundraising for Ukraine.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, and also, we just reached $1,000 raised for this fundraiser, literally at the last second of the intro, which was crazy. I was kind of worried we wouldn't be able to reach the 1K goal before the end of the intro tonight, but of course, the Lee Spring Army never disappoints and blew past the $1,000 mark. Now, to cover a few things, first, let me throw in my $100, which y'all will see here in the live chat soon. So let me throw it in, give me just a second, everyone. And while I'm throwing it in, tonight's fundraiser is Razom for Ukraine. We haven't run this fundraiser for a little bit. I believe it's been about 4 or 5 fundraisers since this one has been put up, but we've now put it up once again. Razom for Ukraine helps out with stipends and pensions for Ukrainian soldiers after the war and helps them to go to college. So it's a great thing to do. Also, they have a whole bunch of other projects, but the big one to me is their college fund for Ukrainian veterans and soldiers, because these soldiers are giving their all right now, and they're possibly risking their lives and their future to defend their nation. And I feel that it is a massive token of appreciation to these soldiers that once they either are no longer serving the military or the war is over, that they will be able to be helped to go through college and get themselves careers and futures of their own thanks to the Lee Spring Army. And so, of course, my $100 just got thrown in. I think that should have been seen here in the chat. Yeah, there it is. It's up there.
It was.
My $100 was thrown in, and I always do that to make sure that all of y'all know that I'm backing up the fundraisers that we're running. And of course, please make sure to support tonight's fundraiser. It means a lot to us. It means a lot to the soldiers on the ground that will be benefiting from this fundraiser. And it means a lot to the entirety of the Lee Spring Army as well. But it's now time to get into tonight's big news. Before we even get to the news that is in the thumbnail and the title tonight, we have got a brand new Discord server, a brand new one opened, and for the past week, we have not had an invite link to any Discord server on these live streams. Oh my god, DCC Prime, good lord! Wait a minute, but before we get to that, because I'm blown away by that, I gotta get this out. Good god, Philip! Okay, hang on, we gotta get to this real quick. I'm getting blown away though, and I gotta thank both of y'all for that. But we have a new invite to a Discord server. We've made an entirely new one. With it comes a whole bunch of brand new quirks and features, like Doug DeMuro would say. We're going to have a whole kind of events running on there. We've got great things planned, and it's brand new. So make sure to click on the link in the description below. Even if you are a member of the current Discord server, that one is going to be closing down here in the future. It's going to be probably about a couple of weeks to a month from now, that Discord server will close. It most likely will have its final day in operation being day 365 of the war, and by then it should be shut down. So make sure to join the brand new server and go over there and see all the cool things we have set up, because they are really neat. We got a whole bunch of competitions lined up. Pretty much everything's moving over there. So make sure to click on the link in the description below tonight and hop over there and join that server. And also make sure to leave the old one, because we're eventually trying to migrate everyone over there. And so with that,
Also, real quick, did you intend to put Russia as mobilizing in the title?
wait, hang on. You know, you got a good point, Matthew. I think that is actually the... I'm just kidding. That was misspelled. So, the...
I see some folks were going berserk about that, by the way. They're like, what is Mobo?
We'll say... We'll fix that. There we go. It's an I now. I'm sorry. I mistyped that earlier. But anyways, it's now time to get into the news that y'all are all probably hopping in here for, which is the Russians mobilizing the wounded. Now, I will say this really quickly. This is not another declaration of a partial mobilization. It is not that at all. What we're seeing, though, is that apparently the Russians are mobilizing the wounded soldiers that have now been discharged from the Russian army, and they're going, well, you know, it's still within that phase after you've been discharged from the military that we can call you back up from military service, and we're going to bring y'all right back into the war. And this is, of course, if they have legs or arms. If they were injured in some other way, they're being brought back. And we saw this today in an intercepted phone call. So we're going to hop down into the location unknowns real quick and listen to this intercepted phone call where this exact thing was laid out. It's absolutely bizarre to think that the Russians have gotten to such desperate levels to try and not call another partial mobilization right now, or at least stretch it out as long as they can, that they've gone to these lengths to try and mobilize previously wounded soldiers. So here's the clip.
Еще неизвестно, что дальше будет. Он, видите, сегодня тоже с Катюхой разговаривали, всех гребут абсолютно. Косых, хромых, всех забирают. Даже, он говорит, у знакомого, говорит, операция была, когда, говорит, ну, через 10 дней забрали. Операция, говорит, 10 дней назад была, говорит, забрали всех. Видимо, и у Ксюши Богдана забирать, она же говорила, что с такой болячкой в армии не служат. Я говорю, да. Я говорю, сейчас не сдох, значит, пошел.
Есть такое дело. Так вроде мобилизация же закончилась, нет? Еще набирают.
Так это вояк забирают, Саш.
Ну да. Вояк отправляют всех.
Че?
Так они что сделали? Они мобилизованных ставят на этот самый, на линию обороны. А вояк всех напередок.
Так понятно. Саш, а куда этих мобиков напередок? Ты что, издеваешься? У них, уже зона, соплями льют. И эти, сдаются в плен.
And that's the end of the clip right there, but you can hear from someone in Russia, they are mobilizing every single person they can find, including the previously wounded, to bring them back into the war and bring them back into the fight. That is unbelievable. Of course, in the United States, if you're wounded and you're discharged from service, you'll never be called up again because you're physically not considered fit to serve. So it's very insane, very bizarre, and highly unprecedented that you would take an already mobilized or wounded soldier that's been discharged and go back to them and go, you're coming back, and you're going right back to where you got wounded. That would be literally insane. But of course, the Russians don't know what insane is. They are insane, and they're going to keep on pulling off stuff like that. Now, some of y'all have also been asking the question, considering that we're seeing that the Russians are still trying to drum up some little bits of manpower and scrape the bottom of the barrel to find soldiers like the wounded ones that they're now mobilizing again. And some of y'all are wondering, well, how are we going to counter that here in the West and help Ukraine to counter the literal army of the nearly undead that will now be attacking them inside of Ukraine? Well, they are sending in the foreign support, and we saw today a little video taken somewhere near the Polish-Ukrainian border of more Bradleys on a train on their way into Ukraine. And so here's the video of that, and it's quite a sizable train with a decent amount of Bradleys on it, so let's give them a count. 1 Bradley, 2 Bradley, 3 Bradley, 4 Bradley, 5 Bradley, oh, wait a minute, there we go, 5, 6 Bradley, 7 Bradley, 8 Bradley, 9 Bradley, we're saying him singular, 10 Bradley, recovery vehicle. So 10 Bradleys, 1 recovery vehicle, we have a second one, and a third recovery vehicle. 11 Bradley, 12 Bradley, 13 Bradley, 14 Bradley, 15 Bradleys. 15 Bradleys, 3 recovery vehicles, so let me see. Let's see, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. Also, I love the names written on some of these Bradleys, Matthew. Like, one of them was called Criminal Record.
Criminal Record?
Yeah,
I
one
don't
of
know
them
if that's
had
a good thing to put on the side of it.
So there it is. There's Criminal Record right there. So that was 27, 28, 29. 29 Bradleys. Actually, I believe it's 30. I think we may have miscounted there. It may be 30. But 30 Bradleys on this train, along with 3 recovery vehicles. That is around a third of all of the Bradleys that we said we were going to be sending to Ukraine are all on this single train right here. There are going to be 2 other trains, probably the exact same size like this, that will be crossing over into Ukraine and providing these Bradleys to the Ukrainian armed forces there. So, quite a very nice video to see. We're actually seeing these, and from what we were told, this isn't a railroad line heading into Ukraine, and it's also, this train is also eastbound, so it is heading in that direction. So it's going to be nice to see that the Criminal Record will be making it into Ukraine, and that is just one of the few memorable names on some of these Bradleys. Like, let me go back through. There's a really good gem up here. This one, I can't even read. This one I also unfortunately can't read. This one is something killer. Let's see, they're still moving. 1 second. We got to get to the juicy ones here. The juicy ones, I think, come after the recovery vehicles. We're looking at the recovery vehicles again. So here they come. This one is Casper. So I guess it's turning folks into Casper the Friendly Ghost, and I think it'll be turning the Russians into those soon. This one is called... what is that? I can't even read that.
Crusher.
Crusher? That's too long for Crusher, though. This was called Chaos. Just simply Chaos. What Bradley are we sending up? Chaos. Challenger. Huh. this one got disguised in the Challenger 2 shipment. They're like, huh, that doesn't look like a Challenger, but it's called Challenger, so I guess we'll send it with those Challengers. And then the next one, I think this one will probably be the weirdest one for y'all, and if y'all are into some kind of odd or dark humor, I think y'all find this one funny, because if I remember reading this correctly, can't read that one, it's like cat something. It should be here any second now. Consent.
What in the world?
That one's a little weirdly named. And then there's criminal record again. Criminal record's back. But those are some of the interesting names that were written on the back of these Bradleys, and I'm sure that the Russian propaganda machine will be trying to churn out something about these names here soon. Criminal record, the Americans are sending a Bradley operated by criminals, absolute criminals, into Ukraine. What are they going to do now? You know, like they're going to be saying something like that. But anyways, that's the end of that clip, and it's great to see that they're going to be sending more Bradleys into Ukraine. And I got to tell y'all, the Belarusians... Oh, you know, they're like every month, you know, every month comes around and they are joining the war every single month. And I've got to tell y'all, this month, I think it's got to be serious. And it's a good thing that the Ukrainians are getting these Bradleys because they're going to have to defend themselves against the Belarusian threat. And Matthew, I hate to say it, and I don't mean to fearmonger on this channel, but it's going to get serious from here forward. It's, the Belarusians, of course, only have a small force to dedicate, 30 to 40,000, but it's going to be on an entirely new front line, probably somewhere in the area of Lutsk and Rivne. And the fact that they'll be pushing into the country from there with these kinds of soldiers is very scary, to say the least. And believe it or not, it looks like Belarusian soldiers are actually being trained to a high standard. Not a Western doctrine standard, but an incredibly high one, to say the least. And so let me show you all this video, because the Belarusians are certainly ready for whatever's going to be thrown at them. And this video is making me scared.
You can't be serious.
Oh, this video, Matthew, made me shiver my timbers. Watch it. Oh, God. Oh, no. Not jujitsu. Oh, my God. The skill. What the hell is this? Oh my God, the skill, the absolute skill. Look at this guy, man. He's tiptoeing over these soldiers while firing an AK in full auto. The skill. Because for some reason, the Belarusian army needs the skills to climb over immobile men that are laying on the ground while firing an AK in full auto. I wonder why they'll need that skill. Maybe it's because all of their other squad members have been killed below them and they're trying to retreat from the area while also firing at the drone above them. They took out most of the squad. That is literally this tactic, Matthew. Run away after the whole squad's been killed while trying to shoot the drone down with dumb luck. That's this one right here again.
That is ridiculous.
Oh, but it gets better. Oh, man. Yeah, break the cinder block over your testicles. Be a man. With a 10-pound sledgehammer. You know, I wonder if that guy will ever have kids. You know, I know that it's all for show, but I feel like having a 10-pound sledgehammer hit a cinder block over your crotch, I feel like that's not really good for your longevity.
This film right here is produced and directed by Steven Seagal.
Yes, it is. Oh man, I'm scared. Oh
Well,
man.
I think Ukraine
It's done
I think they're in
for.
really good shape.
And I got to be honest with you, Maddie. I think the Ukrainians are done for because with those kind of guys with those kind of skills, man. I mean, like even Steven Seagal is drooling at these guys. These guys are just next level right here. And if the Ukrainians can even hold these guys off, I'd be impressed. So we're going to be moving on out of Belarus and that whatever it was. We're going to be moving on into Russia because we had a little interesting occurrence happen in Russia today, which is another 1420 video. And nowadays, they're walking around asking Russians, do they feel like cannon fodder? Let's see their answers. Let's see the cannon fodder give the answers of whether they feel like cannon fodder or not. Here's the clip. Oh, it's not liking 720. I'm sitting here trying to turn it up to 720. It's not liking that. Let me skip forward and see if it'll like it now. It doesn't like it. We'll put it down on 5.
Do we have our pixels back?
I think we're having a critical lack of pixels here. Well, let me back it up to the start. Okay, we're going to close the tab down. We're going to turn it back on because turning it off and back on always works. And now let's see if the video will play. I'll just have to let it go to whatever graphics it feels comfortable with. So for now, it's in 240. And now it's pausing again. Wow, this video just doesn't want to work. Let me see here. Let me skip forward a little. Here we go.
Пушечным мясом. Что думаете по этому поводу?
Субъективное мнение, честно, я не знаю, ну, вообще объективную ситуацию по поводу.
Ну вот вы лично себя считаете пушечным мясом?
Нет, я считаю, придется родину защищать, что ты сделаешь. Ничего не сделаешь, идти нужно. А что делать?
Ну а как считаете?
Если сюда придут.
Well, he didn't really answer the question if you felt like cannon fodder. Now he said, well, if I have to do it, I have to do it. They didn't answer it.
Россияне это пушечное мясо. Как относитесь к этому? Что думаете?
Негативно я к этому отношусь. Потому что
Holy moly, Matthew, is this Stan Lee?
Волна мобилизации.
Oh, hell no.
This is the
Maybe
Russian.
like the discount, like Great Value Sam Lee.
This is the Russian
I'm
ripoff,
Sam
Matthew.
Lee.
This is Stanislav Lee.
Yes. Stan Lee. I said Sam Lee for some
белый
reason.
мужчина должен уметь владеть оружием и уметь защищать себя.
Только белый?
Why did he make that
What?
distinction, though? He said only a white man can know how to hold a weapon to defend himself. So the cameraman said, a white man? Only a white man? And then he was like, yeah. Oh, here comes the interesting question.
Чернокожие. Почему?
Oh, dang.
Oh my goodness.
Wow, that guy was pretty straightforward with that. All right.
Damn.
It looks like the Klan's alive in Russia. They didn't even start. What the hell?
Слишком грубый термин, я бы сказал, это раз. Во-вторых, есть все-таки такая вещь, как заставляют людей идти на эти же самые специальные военные операции. Так что я даже, честно говоря, не знаю, что мне сказать по этому поводу.
Ну вот вы лично себя считаете пушечным мясом?
Если я буду на специальной операции, то, скорее всего, я буду себя в какой-то...
A cannon fodder, a singular cannon fodder.
Готовлен, не обучен, ничего не умею.
Вот вы себя считаете пушечным мясом?
Я себя считаю прежде всего человеком. Как должны чувствовать себя все люди. Вообще все абсолютно. Надо изменить свое восприятие мира, понимание мира. Мир не такой, как все привыкли думать. Я не призываю к революции. Это не призыв к свержению чего-то, власти. Это призыв к перемене мышления. Мир не такой, какой вы видите. Я осознанный человек. Нельзя мыслить негативно. Мысли негативно, вы притягиваете негатив в свою жизнь.
How did that answer the question?
This guy came across like one of those motivational speaker types.
He came up, are you cannon fodder? You've got to get on that hustle. You've got to be on that
grind set.
You got to get yourself that Rolex, that Bugatti. He didn't even answer the question. He just went through the spiel.
Ввести войска на Украину. Все это следствие так называемой Горбачевской перестройки. Придурок меченый побывал у власти. Вот результат.
I like how this guy is wearing one of the hats that they wear in Star Wars for the Empire, who works for like Darth Vader and stuff.
И он забыл, видимо, в своих этих интервью, более поздних, что именно он является виновником развала, не распада, а развала Союза.
Well, so we can say there was a commie there. A merciless plug.
Ну, вот говорят,
Everyone's got to do
что
it.
отправляют насильно на фронт сейчас Украины, и что там умирают ни за что.
Ну, не согласен с этой точкой зрения. Ну, потому что это в любом случае выбор каждого гражданина, это его ответственность.
Ну вот, допустим, если бы шла повестка, условно, вы бы пошли бы?
Да, конечно. У меня есть бронь от мобилизации, но я бы все равно пошел.
А почему сейчас не идете тогда?
Потому что сейчас работаю в IT.
Ага. Ну а если бы пришла повестка, как бы, то пошли бы все равно.
Да.
Угу. Ну вот смотрите, а если вот вам бы, условно, пришла повестка, вот там, ну, дадут вам на подготовку, будут готовить 2-3 недели, вы бы как к этому отнеслись бы?
Хорошие вопросы. Если бы пришла повестка, меня бы уже стали забирать, то есть я вот уже представил, что я в части, сказали, что 3 недели, я бы сказал...
This guy says if he gets conscripted, he'll just say, I doubt your training methods, sir. And then he'll just get some rights anyways. That doesn't really work.
Ну, они бы вряд ли бы отменили решение, я думаю.
Ну, естественно, зачем отменять решение? В том-то и дело, что, опять же, вы сами сказали, что и будет вторая волна набора. Для чего вторая волна набора? Опять же, как сказали, нужны люди. А что они сделают, если людей нет? Нужно их доставать, поэтому никто ничего никуда не отпустит. Скажет, ну, нужно, значит нужно. Это уже решение, как говорится, властей.
Ну, она не могла мне в текущих условиях мобилизации.
Oh, this guy is in denial.
Не служил, не имею никакой специальности военной учета.
Ну вот и если представить, что там всеобщее, допустим, или многих вот мобилизации.
Всеобщее, все пойдут.
Ну, ты как отнесешься к этому? Ну вот если бы вас...
We're back to racist Stanislav Lee.
На фронт вы бы пошли?
Да, конечно.
А не боитесь?
Ну что делать?
А с какой целью?
Защищать себя и свою страну.
А мы сейчас защищаемся?
Да.
Украина встала на сторону НАТО в 1994 году, уже состоялись первые учения совместные Украины и НАТО.
That's not true at all.
Принимала участие во вторжении в Ирак, и в том числе...
That's not true either.
Вот. И сами украинцы там погибали. То есть Украина стала на сторону нашего врага, который сам себя таким называет. Белоруссия не встала, там другие бывшие республики не встали. Украина встала. Ну и...
Wait a minute. Other ex-USSR countries didn't side with NATO? What about the Baltics, idiot? Like, are they just not a part of the former Soviet Union? I mean, hell, if I look at a map of the Soviet Union, I'm pretty sure, if I'm not wrong, that they're in it. That's kind of weird. They're in it. Look, there's all the Soviet republics right here on a map. A nice little map on the World Atlas. Let me go here because it'll probably get in better graphics. Look, 2, 3, and 4. What's number 2, 3, and 4 of the United Soviet Socialist Republics? Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. They didn't join NATO. Ukraine's the only one that joined NATO, according to this idiot. So take his history with a grain of salt because he apparently got it from, I don't know, Russia Today.
Уж кому, а уж не в Соединенных Штатах говорить о нападениях. Где они? В Ираке? В Афганистане? Где они продвигают демократию?
Ну вот в Афганистане, кстати, вот вы упомянули, в Афганистане за 10 лет мы потеряли в районе 12 тысяч. А сейчас, по информации вот независимых СМИ, что потеряли в районе 13 тысяч.
Dang, that's what they're even saying in Russia? They're saying that they've lost 13,000 guys over the course of the war? I mean, that doesn't actually sound that good, even if that's way lower than what we're seeing. You know, he just compared it to Afghanistan, where about 10,000 Russian soldiers, well, Soviet soldiers died over the course of 10 years, meaning that around 1,000 died a year. Even according to Russia's incredibly low estimate, 13,000 Russian soldiers have been killed in 11 months of war. That means that 1,000 of them have been killed a month in the war in Ukraine, according to their figures, versus the war in Afghanistan where 1,000 died a year. 10 times the deaths over a year's course of time as compared to Afghanistan. That is still not good. I mean, I don't know how anyone in Russia is going, oh, yeah, that's acceptable. Because, hell, we are seeing more accurate casualty statistics around 120,000 or so. 13,000 is almost impossible because I'm sure that we've seen more recorded footage of more than 13,000 Russians getting blown away, but anyways, we're going to let this continue.
Это война.
Ну, это не говорит о том, что все-таки как пушечное мясо там используются люди.
На войне всегда гибнут люди.
Here the match CCC Prime One's donation donated $200. Thank you so much.
Ну, хохлов погибло по, опять же, независимым оценкам где-то 1100. Соотношение 1 к 10. Нормально.
То есть средства оправданы.
Да.
Даже если это люди.
Это война. Что делать?
Ну вот вы тоже
Damn.
там
Linen?
ради какого-нибудь сокровища готовы помереть для любимого человека.
Nervous laughing.
Или еще что-то. Мы не знаем соотношение цели и не знаем соотношение жертв. Мы можем говорить, что цели, которые не заслуживают такого количества жертв, и тогда мы можем рассуждать о том, что это незаслуженные жертвы и назвать их, так скажем.
So he's in the idea that Russians are cannon fodder. Or not, apparently. Okay, so no clear answer.
Есть какое-то из этого положения? Наверное, нет. Что, больше ничего другого не остается. За неимением гербовой пишут на простой. Слышали такую поговорку? Ну, к сожалению, это так. Что еще можно сказать? А война там будет затягиваться. Вы знаете, если вы думаете, что там пройдет это за 2-3 месяца, все это будет кончено, нет. Запад достиг своей цели.
А какая цель?
Натравить Россию, на Россию, Украину, кого угодно.
To push Russia against Ukraine? That wasn't her goal?
Считаете, что ее можно
Oh,
было
God.
избежать?
Можно было. Можно. Посчитаю.
Почему не избежали?
Из-за слабости президента. Надо было в 2014 году брать Киев. Тогда бы сейчас не было войны.
То есть...
Он тогда провел слабину, поэтому сейчас война.
Interesting.
So he criticized Putin because he thinks he was too soft.
Поэтому говорят, как пушечное мясо. Что думаете?
Ну, очевидно, у них вывод основывается на том, что они считают, что раз нету, скажем так, акции некого противодействия, то...
Не мешайте, пожалуйста.
Oh, it's Russian Karen.
Значит, мешайте. Что это такое, что пушечное мясо? Нет, не пушечное мясо. Это защита.
You can tell the husband's just here. He's just existing.
Вы посмотрите на Европу, что там делается. Вы посмотрите вот эти вот нацики, которые... Вы лучше спросите, что делают с нашими военнопленными?
А что делать с нашими войнами?
А вот вы скажите мне, раз...
Oh, now I know why he wasn't talking.
Собираете вот это вот провокационные вопросы про пушечное мясо.
Oh gosh, I couldn't stand listening to her for like 2 seconds.
Ну вот у нас говорят, отправляют,
у вас говорят, в Америке кур давят.
Вас спрашивают, чтобы сообщить то, что вы думаете.
А вы считаете, что пушечное мясо это у нас,
Я
да?
ничего не говорю.
Очень плохо, что вы не считаете. Вы должны свое мнение
Я
тоже
должен
иметь.
считать, что пушечное мясо вы считаете?
Наоборот.
Ну вот.
Ну вот, смотрите, у нас вот...
Вы откуда?
Из России.
Вы откуда? Из России.
Да.
Откуда?
Чего
вас вот так вот на улице вот эти вот такие опросы?
Who let you ask these questions on the street? What the hell do you mean? Do I have to get a permit to talk around here or something? Get the hell out of here.
Спрашиваю мнение москвичей.
Стоп-канал. Вот именно стоп-канал.
Так,
и прекратите тут провокационные вопросы такие.
Ну вот смотрите.
Пушечное мясо придумали тоже. В Хохляндии пушечное мясо. Вот там да.
Не, я не сужу. А вот смотрите.
А вот надо бы послушать.
Смотрите.
И тоже был бы подготовлен.
А вот смотрите, тогда надо было призывать людей вот в первой волне. Вот.
Ну так вы посмотрите, что у нас, с кем борется Россия. С кем? С НАТО. И поляки, и румыны, и молдаване, и англичане, и кого только там нет.
А зачем они против нас?
А
тогда?
почему вы спрашиваете? Если вы ничего не знаете...
Спросите, зачем им Россия мешает? Им недра наши нужны. Наши люди нужны.
This man is shouting so quietly.
Способные парни.
И прекратите это
А
все.
зачем тогда? А для чего вот и американцам это делать? Вот все-таки.
А вы вот подумайте своей головой.
Не, а зачем?
Those two are like what I imagine like the pro-Putin supporters to look like those type of attitudes, just really entitled and they basically can do whatever they want
You
in
know,
their
when
minds.
when she asked who gave you the right to come out here on the street and say something like this, I would have said, who gave you the right to be such a Karen out here in the streets? The FSB needs to scoop you up for this. This is against the law. But with that, that's the end of the clip. And y'all can see right there that it actually got heated for once on a 1420 clip. Usually, they just get answers. This time, they actually got an angry Karen and a Darren on film. And also, he was almost dead, you could tell, because whenever he talked, he would go, but it's going to be moving on from Russia, because it appears that it's a mixed opinion in Russia. Some of them feel like they're cannon fodder, and the other parts of the cannon fodder don't really feel like it yet, but they'll get around to it at some point. And so with that, it's now time for us to move on into Lviv, because we've had something really interesting in Lviv. It was talked about last night on stream that there was a new exhibit in the Science Museum in Lviv of the Moskva sinking. We found it today, and so here's the little clip. It's pretty cool, I will admit. You see right there a little mock-up of the Moskva and the ocean floor, and it sinks below the sea. And it goes to the public. Pretty cool. I think that's a pretty cool exhibit. I think they ought to have more of those around, because of course, buoyancy is something that the Russians just don't really understand too well, and I think that the Ukrainians should be well taught on the ideas of buoyancy and also outdated ships. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little clip in Lviv and on into Kyiv, because I thought this was fairly interesting today. We haven't seen a lot of pictures, at least I haven't seen, of foreign, I guess you could say officials or heads of state making their way back into Ukraine, but we saw a former head of state, a former leader of a country, make a visit to Ukraine again today. And I thought it was fairly interesting, because it seems as though, due to the amount of pictures taken and how much I saw it everywhere, that this must have been a big deal. The former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Boris Johnson, visited Ukraine today and once again toured the areas of the Bucha Hospital European area and also Borodyanka, and then also met with President Zelenskyy. He looks pretty cold, I will admit. And also the hair as distinct as normal. And we can see all the pictures of him. We can see him meeting with Zelenskyy again today and having a meeting with him. I believe, if I'm correct, and maybe someone can clarify this for me, if you resign as the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, you end up resuming the seat that you're originally from as a member of parliament. I'm not really sure how that works, because maybe he's there representing on that official end, but I'm not really sure. And so with that,
that's what I was wondering when you showed it. I was thinking, does he even hold a position anymore?
That's what I'm wondering. Because I'm thinking, if I remember correctly, another former prime minister, Margaret Thatcher, does hold her original seat as a member of parliament for, I think, a far west suburb of London. If I remember correctly. I forgot the actual name of it. But if our British viewers could help us out with that, let us know. Also, very interested to see him return, because while he's no longer the Prime Minister, he was one of the people around the world that spearheaded the idea of giving support to Ukraine, and the British, along with the Polish, were one of the first countries to actually provide any kind of material support to the Ukrainians in the beginning of the war. And so, very interested to see him make a return, and it looks like someone said he is still a member of parliament. Actually, a lot of people are saying that. So apparently he just went to being a backbencher, which means that he's not one of the prominent members of his party, but he's still there. So with that, we're going to be moving on from the news around the area of Kyiv, and we're now moving in to our location unknowns, which have been fairly interesting today. Starting off with our first bit, where we saw some captured mobiks. But before we get to that little clip of a captured mobik, which there was actually a lot of them, we've had some interesting polls running. Also, sorry, Chris Cola, I wasn't talking about Thatcher, I was actually talking about Theresa May. Sorry about that. And I was like, I believe she's dead. Yeah, she is dead. I'm sorry, I misspoke. For some reason, I got them confused. But anyways, we've got a poll together. I think we actually have a couple. So with that, Matthew, what do we got?
And we actually only have one poll to cover right now. And the poll says Germany will not stop Poland from sending Leopard tanks to Ukraine if asked, said the official. What are your thoughts? It looks like 46% said the German government is being pathetic, and 45% said good, that is a good step, and 9% said unsure. To me, that kind of comes off as being a little bit pathetic, that they were even considering potentially blocking that. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say this. I would have a very strong condemnation for the Germans, and I would not hold back on making any comments about them if they had stopped the Polish from sending their Leopards, because at that point, that is just despicable. If they want to stop themselves from sending tanks, that's disappointing. But if they're going to stop other NATO members from sending German-made tanks into Ukraine on their own, I would not back that up at all. So it's a good thing that they did allow that and send that over, and I think that should have just been expected at this point. And so with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well. And now it's time, I think, for us to get right into the questions, because we don't have another poll, believe it or not.
All right, and before we get into those questions, a real quick update on the fundraiser. We're sitting at $3.1 thousand of tonight's $5,000 goal. So we are getting pretty close to reaching the goal, but we still have a little ways to go. So if you can donate, please feel free to do so. It is going to a very good cause. And also, we do have a list of top donors if you'd like me to read those off.
And I would love to hear them off, because there was a lot of people who made, of course, if no one had donated tonight, we wouldn't have even been able to get to 3.1K right now. So let's hear off the top donors that have helped us get to this point so far.
All right, so up first, we have a $200 donation from DCC Prime 1, and also a $200 donation from Here to Match DCC Prime 1's donation. So very funny, and thank you to you both for that very generous support. We also have a $150 from Philip Truitt, and we have several 100s. The first is from Malachite. Then we have one from Activista, Gene Kustra, Peter, Retail Mix USA, Sharon Tukolsky, Bryce, Ackle, and then we have several 50s. The first is from Heather Fitzgibbon. Then we have one from Panama Floyd, Travel ICU RN, Greg Carrier, Robert Harrington, BC Skyman, Kimberly Brokaw, Landlubber, Dad Good, Barb Moody, Cindy Mitchell, and LR3000. And at the moment, those are all of the top donors. And thank you all so much, even if we didn't get to call out your name, for all the very generous support tonight. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank everyone so far that has supported tonight's fundraiser, like Christopher Peterson, who just threw in 160 Swedish kroner, I believe. I got to thank you so much as well, because without all of y'all throwing in this support to tonight's fundraiser, it wouldn't have been possible. And it's a huge, huge commitment that y'all give every single weekend to help us to blow through these fundraiser goals and help out these fundraisers and nonprofits that are over there doing the work they're doing. Razlum for Ukraine is certainly an incredible fundraiser. We've run them multiple times on this channel. It's been a while since we ran them the last time, and we wanted to bring them back again because they are absolutely impressive in the work and help they do to the Ukrainian soldiers and what they're able to give them during the war and after the war. So I highly, once again, encourage, I'm not trying to plug them or anything, but I am, to support tonight's fundraiser. Wait a minute. 1,000 Norwegian kroner? Good Lord.
Wow.
Thank you, Eagle. And I highly encourage y'all to support tonight's fundraiser because it helps out Ukrainian soldiers directly, especially with helping them to secure a future that they may have not been able to otherwise. And I think it's a great token of appreciation to them for defending the entirety of the Western world and everyone who's currently watching this stream right now from further Russian aggression and most likely what would become a world war. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well and address all of the supporters who've sent in support tonight. And with that, it's now time for us to get into a couple of very interesting questions because I know that we probably have some really good questions.
All right, so first up, we have the first one, which goes to the Morse code decoders of the stream. We have JP's RCs, Mark Hodges, CFA, WFTU, and also Rumpelstiltskin, who said the Morse code says, make sure to join the new Discord server. It's having a grand opening, and Slava LSA, Slava Ukraine, and Igor.
And you did get it correct. That is the Morse code message for the night. Once again, plugging the Discord because I want to make sure that everyone knows about this Discord. Our moderator team did an impressive amount of work getting a new one put up and put together. We've been working on it for several weeks, and they've done a great job. I have to give a huge shout out to Iceland, Susie Halsey, who are also moderators here on this stream. I have to also give a huge shout out to one of our moderators, Rambo Kurt. He did a lot of the work making the channel happen along with Iceland. We also had Brad, who many of y'all don't know. He's our adjuster. He works on the stream to get everything working and running fairly well. And there's a load of moderators that were involved in getting that thing done. It was kept top secret for a good while, so only a small handful of them knew about it and were working on it. But we've moved everything over there right now, and so y'all ought to be able to join and get in there. And I'm wondering, how is the server doing? So real quick, Matthew, I'm gonna
Uzi Halsey said it's blowing up.
It's blowing up. But let's see here. Let's go to the LSA barracks members. So there's now 182 members in here. Wow, that's actually a pretty decent amount, like, to start off with. So make sure to join, because it's a brand new server, and they put a lot of work into it, and it's a really good one. It's even better than the last one we had. So with that, we are going to be getting on to the next question. And also, thank you to all of y'all once again for deciphering that Morse code message, and I hope y'all enjoy that brand new Discord server.
Yes, indeed. And also, real quick, Walter A. Lakota Jr. asked, is the post on here about the P.O. Box true? And it is true. And I think the Enforcer puts it in there occasionally in the live chat, and I'm not sure if it's in the description, though.
It is true. We do have a P.O. Box now. I also put a community post out on it today on just the channel at large, and I also put it in the channel description as well. So you can find it in a decent amount of places, and I think we are putting the P.O. Box on the Discord server, the brand new one, here soon. So if you have any fan mail that you would like to send, or anything at all, we will take it. I don't know if we'll be taking the toxic stuff that the KGB will be sending us here soon, but we will take everything else in between. So here's the P.O. Box address here in the live chat real quick again. But if you have anything you want to send, that's where you can send it. And so with that, I hope that does address that question, Walter, fairly well. And I'm wondering, Walter, are you sending us something? It sounds like you may be. But with that, we are on to the next question.
All right, and the second question goes to Mad Machine, who says, Enforcer, how much of the power grid has been restored in Ukraine?
We're not really sure at the moment, because the power grid is constantly coming back up and other parts are being put back down due to missile attacks. So we're not really sure how much of it is up or down at this given moment. At a time, though, something like 60 to 70% of the Ukrainian power grid was down at a single given moment. From what we know, it may be up around 70% of it is back online. But we're not really sure, because that number was also collected a while ago, probably about a month ago at this point. So with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. Maybe there is a Ukraine power outage map. Ukraine power outage map. Poweroutage.com. An error occurred while trying to load the map. Refresh the page to retry. Or if the error persists, let us know on Twitter. Well, I would love to let y'all know on Twitter, but I'm in the middle of running a stream. So, let's see. Power outage schedule. It doesn't look like it gives us a map here either. So sadly, we can't really tell, and we don't get any exact figures right now. But the last we heard, it may be around 70%, or it may be that 70% of it's also knocked out. We're not really sure. So with that, I hope that does answer that question fairly well. And it's time for us to get on to the last one before we get back to the news and watch some Mobics get captured.
All right, and before we get to the last one, big shout out to James Reyes for putting in a $100 donation to the fundraiser tonight. Well, I was about to say super chat, but thank you, James, very much for that generosity. And we're up to $3.6 thousand, so still making really good progress. And the final question of the first segment goes to, let's see here, Duncan VR, who says, I have a Crimea letter dated 1856. Camp Sevastopol, apparently a siege was going on, and the Russians withdrew. Can you shed some light on this war? And blah.
All right, so I knew that question was coming up because I saw it in the 10-minute countdown, and I knew that was a good enough one that we would make sure to answer it. So, the Crimean War, to go back in time to the 1850s, when also the Civil War was beginning to brew up and it would become a reality here in the United States just a couple of years later, the continent of Europe was having a little bit of a problem. The thing is that the Turkish, which at that point were called the Ottoman Empire, and the Russian Empire, were pitted against each other in a land war in the area of Romania and Bulgaria in the modern day. This war was starting to be turned in Russia's favor, and it appeared that if the Russians won, they would start to, I guess you could say, acquire some ground from the Ottoman Empire that would start to throw off the balance of power in Europe and start jeopardizing the fragile maintenance that all European countries had been undergoing ever since the Congress of Vienna in 1815. So, back then, international politics were at play. They said, hey, quit it. The Russians said no. So then the British and the French, oddly enough, allied with the Turks, which, well, we're calling them the Turks, but they're really the Ottomans, but I think back then they were still called the Turks, or the Ottomans. It's kind of interchangeable. Anyways, They allied with them, which is very bizarre because if you know anything in history, the British and the French would then go to war with the Turks just a little bit later on. Oh my God.
1,500. We just hit goal.
Oh my God. Gary. Gary. Calm down. Golly. Igor. We just reached the goal.
That
Well,
quick.
Good night,
Gary,
everyone.
You just like wrapped up the whole fundraiser and everything.
Hey, you just wrapped it up. Good night, everyone. It's been nice. I'm just kidding. We're going to keep covering the news for the night. But Gary, oh my God, that's insane. Thank you, Gary. Thank you. You literally just got us over the $5,000 mark and helped us reach the goal tonight. And you're helping out a load of soldiers out there on the ground. They'll be able to go to college after this war thanks to your support to this night's fundraiser. I can't believe that. That was insane. It didn't even register for a minute, Matthew. I was like, what? I was like, anyways, we're getting back to the story of the Crimean War. So, the British and the French allied with the Ottomans, and they went to war. The problem, however, is that, I'm sure y'all won't see this coming, the British and the French were wholly incompetent in this war. The commanders they had assigned to this thing were practically stupid as far as it was concerned. And that's really surprising because the British and the French throughout all of history are known for having the most formidable navies and armies in the world. The British and the French exclusively. The Germans, yeah, they're good all the way up until about the 1910s. But they're not that great. They're not on the level of the Brits and the French. And that's also because the Brits and the French always had these massive bristling navies that could transport these militaries practically anywhere and support them wherever they may be. So the British and the French sailed some massive fleets from France and Britain through the Bosphorus Strait and into the Black Sea, and they brought them all up to Sevastopol. They dropped them off north of the town, well, north of the city. They just kind of hung out there for a little bit, and the Russians were like, huh, that's kind of weird. They're not doing anything. So then finally, the British and the French, after literally just kind of meandering around north of Sevastopol for a couple of months, the commander finally said, oh, let's go to Sevastopol. So then they marched down to Sevastopol. It was a pretty bloody battle, but they curb stomped the Russians in the end, took the town, and from there, they started to try and move further into Crimea. It would end up being a British, French, and Turkish victory. I guess you could say a coalition victory, but it came at a little bit of a cost. The Russians, I believe, and let me make sure I'm getting these casualty statistics correct. Crimean War, I believe the Russians ended up losing, a lot more than the British and the French and the Turks did. Holy moly, they actually ended up losing twice as many, and that's actually a lot better than I thought it would be for them. But still, you could see that they didn't really end up in this war well. They wouldn't end up losing any land, but the balance of power due to the Congress of Vienna in 1815 would still be respected, and you would see that nothing would change. It would remain status quo. The borders wouldn't change. The Ottoman Empire would still control the same amount of land. The Austrian-Hungarians would. The German Empire would. The Russians would, all the way up until World War I. And then that's when things started to radically change. So that, in a way, is kind of a very, very, very condensed nutshell of the Crimean War. I'm sure a lot of y'all know it from the poem The Charge of the Light Brigade, which is about a British light cavalry brigade that charged through a valley, which was, I guess you could say, covered in both sides of this valley by Russian artillery, which literally tore the light brigade apart, and I think 6 guys survived out of the 300 that charged into the valley. So probably one of the worst incidents that occurred in the Crimean War as an individual incident that became famous later, but that's probably where most of y'all know the Crimean War from, is the Charge of the Light Brigade. In America, they don't really tell you about that, though. I remember reading The Charge of the Light Brigade and completely confused at the point when it was read to me in school why there were British soldiers inside of Russia in the 1850s, because they never go over that part in American schools in history about how the British went to war with the Russians and the French did as well and beat them, and then later on went to go and join an alliance with them to enter the First World War with. With that, I hope that addresses the question fairly well. And also another great carryover from the Crimean War is the Victoria Cross, which is a really interesting thing. Not Victoria's Secret, but the Victoria Cross right here. These are the highest medals that you could be bestowed in the British military for valor in the field. And what's really cool about them, Matthew, you want to guess what's cool about these medals?
It's slightly pink at the top.
No. The metal, the cross and all the metal pieces that are on this medal are made out of captured Russian guns that were melted down during the Crimean War, and that's where every single Victoria Cross gets its metal from, is from those original Russian guns.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
That is
so.
really
So when they
cool.
give out a medal, they can say this medal was created from the old smelting Russian guns.
Yeah, it actually is. That's like the coolest thing about them. And it's like that is really cool because the medal. I don't know what the medal is that makes up the Medal of Honor. It may be captured Confederate. I'm not going to say that because that may be completely inaccurate. I don't know where the medal is sourced for a Medal of Honor, but we do know where it comes from for a Victoria Cross. And that is probably like one of the coolest stories behind a medal ever. The Medal of Honor would also come around the exact same time as the Victoria Cross in the 1860s during the Civil War. And some of the first Medal of Crosses that were given out, I believe, are given out in, the Medal of Honor, not the Medal of Cross. The Medal of Honors were given out sometime in 1862, I believe, for the first time. So with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. And I think Bookman has said, I just said that. Da, 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 da. I'm sorry if you did. I'm not reading the live chat. I was trying to get the story out. But with that, I hope that addresses that question fairly well, Duncan. And I believe that was the last question of that segment, if I'm correct, Matthew.
And it sure was.
And so with that, it's now time for us to finally move into those location unknowns and take a good gander, a good look, a propaganda at these captured mobics. You know, Matthew, that's what a what a British person does when they take a really good look at something. They make a propaganda.
Oh.
And now we can see the mobics right here with the tape over their eyes. And we can see that some of them apparently have criminal records. And we see a lot of these guys are mobics, you know, mobilized and all.
Це сидячий, бля.
He is a convict.
За убийство.
And it looks like he went to prison for murder.
Думав, срок скостять. Ну це ж за нього, типа, сказали, що, блядь, щоб нахуй лучше б ти помер, нахуй, блядь. Ну, матушка його, блядь.
А, матушка? Звонил мамке, да? Матушка каже, лучше б ти помер. Один сын или еще есть?
Dang, his mother wants him dead and he's the only son. Typical Russians.
А сколько дали?
Сука, пиздец.
Unfortunate. Well, that's the end of the video, but you can see some more captured mobics, and it looks like a decent amount of them actually were brought out of prison with criminal records. With that, we're now moving on to the next bit of Location Unknown news, where we actually saw that. So we're going to be moving on to the next one, where we saw the Ukrainians conduct a tank rescue of one of their own tanks that got bogged down in the mud. The mud is always a massive obstacle, as we can see right here. They're now going to get this thing out.
Нет, для 72-ки это норм.
You see him looking at the thing. The thing is buried well in the mud.
Как слики.
Oh, it does look like the old chap is stuck quite well.
Hear them whistling for the recovery vehicle. We now see the recovery vehicle pulling the winch. We now see them trying to move the tank forward, putting it forward. Obviously, that moves it forward. And we can also see that it's a captured T-72B3 that's being used by the Ukrainians, because it has the exact same armor layout as the T-72B3. Now, it looks like it might be making it out.
Каток вообще стоит. 1, 2, 3.
Man, that was stuck really deep.
Man, that thing was down deep.
People were saying that there's some guy in a high-vis jacket out there. Do you see him?
Yeah, I did. They're blurring him out, though, for some reason. And they got the tank out.
Выполз.
That's the end of the clip, but very cool to see the Ukrainians recovering one of their tanks with a recovery vehicle and how they were able to pull it off. The Russians, of course, could have done this with a lot of their abandoned tanks earlier on in the war, but chose not to because, you know, it's Russia. So with that, we're now going to be moving on into the next bit of Location Unknown news. Oh man, this is a fun one. The Russian losses. Someone's about to go, that's not fun. But 600 Russian soldiers were whacked today, or as they like to call them, iced. We also saw 12 armored personnel carriers get knocked out, 14 supply trucks, 5 tanks, 9 artillery pieces, a drone, and 2 MLRSs. No Bobcat skid steers, and Matthew always keeps a sharp eye out for Bobcat skid steers. So, unfortunately, none were taken out today, but we did see that a decent amount of the land forces were taken out beyond the skid steers. So it's good to know that they will be 2 more MLRSs short, another drone short, 9 artillery systems, 5 tanks, 14 supply trucks, 12 armored personnel carriers, and around 600 guys. And of course, while I say 600 troops have been wiped out, I have to say it could be a couple of hundred higher, it could be a couple of hundred lower. As an approximation, we don't know if it's exact, it probably isn't exact, but still, it is fairly high. We're now going to be moving on from the casualty report and moving on down into some of our last bits of Location Unknown news, where we saw a Russian T-90 on the move, and this was filmed by a camera on the tank. You see it moving through a completely destroyed village. You see it stopping when you hear something explode. That was probably the tank's transmission. We can now see the tank firing. See it firing again. Again, perchance. We heard something. That's always interesting to me. Whenever we watch these videos, there's nothing around that's moving. It's a completely empty village. Something exploded over there to the right, however. But as far as this tank is concerned, there's nothing here. There's no firefight going on, nothing. Alright, then, yeah, video's over. Nothing really happened. It just fired at a destroyed building, and that was it. So, I don't know. I mean, I guess it did okay. You know, I guess if its job was to fire at an empty building, I guess it did it. So with that, we're going to be moving on to our final bit of Location Unknown news, where we saw a poor dog that was subjected to shelling, much like the Ukrainian soldiers in the area, tried to find some friends, and it looks like he found one in this Ukrainian soldier. Poor thing, scared.
Сховалися на під руку, залізли. Ходила тут бродяча.
Poor thing's got a face like Shiva with how worried it
От,
looks.
сука, підари. Гандони, я вас ненавижу, сука, москалі їбані. Даже тварини страждають.
And with that, that's the end of the clip. And it's nice to see that the little dog was able to make a friend, and hopefully it'll make a permanent friend. Someone just said, copyright! I know, it's fundraiser night, so I'm not really that worried about it. But still, with that, we're going to be moving on into the next clip of, well, actually, that was our last clip of Location Unknown News, but I thought it was a very sweet dog, and I thought I'd show it to y'all, because it's good to know he made a friend today. Now we're going to be moving on into the Northeast, where we saw the front line, of course, not really have any changes worth noting. Here, I'll show y'all. Here's the past 24 hours, here's today. Wow, it's like nothing changed at all. Crazy. So anyways, let's now get into the videos. Starting off in the Kuzamivka area, we saw a Russian attack completely destroyed from the ground up today. Or I guess you could say, down into the ground they went. We can hear My Heart Will Go On being played. It's a famous song from the movie Titanic. Jack, I don't think I can hold on anymore. Stupid, you're stupid. You're literally on a door that could fit 2 people. What are you, stupid? Postal Man said, personally, I'll go back to funding Wagner with my hard-earned dollars. Personally, Postal Man, you sound postal, alright? Second, what type of stupid name is that?
Please don't let the door hit you on the way out, good sir.
Listen, man, I thought you was a nice guy, but you really just a rat piece of shit, man. You're just a rat piece of shit. Whoa, hey, easy, Mike. Nah, come on, man. You seem like a nice guy, but you really just a rat piece of shit. I talked to the mayor. There's nothing anyone can do about it. But now you see the artillery coming down, and it looks like these Russians are running in every direction but the one that's safe. Wow, they're moving like a stampede down there, man. Like, they're going for it. They're running. There's a massive group of them, no spacing, no formation. They are just running away from danger because they have no training. Now they've gotten in a large group here, another shell hit nearby. I guess they're all running the other way now where the shell landed before. And now you see they're going to be harassed by the typical bomblet. Poof. We now see them sitting in the trees, like right there. Actually, I think they might just be lying around. Yeah, they are. So it looks like they got a decent amount of them. And with that, that's the end of the video. And nice to see that this little push was stopped. I'm not sure if it was a push. It looked more like a stampede, but they still got them nonetheless. And so with that, we're now going to be moving down on into the Svatove area where we saw a little warehouse get hit. We see a vehicle moving down there. It looks like a tank, and I think this has music in it. Yeah, we're going to mute that. But we can see the tank backing up towards the building, and now it's sitting there. And see an explosion go off. And oh man, the fires of hell just started in that building. I like how it just slowly started glowing in there for a second, like right here.
It's like a blast furnace or something.
Yeah, they open up a portal of hell in that thing, and now the Russians in the tank are bailing. Instead of just driving away, they're bailing out.
Oh, stupid.
Yeah, now some guys from inside the building are running off.
Oh,
you see that right there. What type of laugh was that?
I was about to say something, but I held it back.
Now you see it cooking and burning, and that's the end of the clip. But nice to see they're able to get a little ammo dump right there and cause the Russians to also abandon a $3.5 billion tank. Not that bad all around. And now we're going to be moving on from the Svatove area and further on down the front, where we saw a BMP-3 got a hole-in-one. We're going to have to mute it. But we can see the bomblet dropping, and right down the turret, blowing up inside of it. And we can see the smoke going through the entirety of the cab inside. And we see them sitting there looking at the BMP. And now they're flying off. And now they're zooming back in. Toasty.
Yeah, spicy.
That's a spicy meatball. And now we can see it flying away. Bye-bye, BMP. It was good watching you burn. That's the end of the video, but a very good hole-in-one indeed, Matthew. I'd have to say, quite right.
Nice.
And so with that, we're now moving on down into the Bakhmut area, because, of course, the Battle of Bakhmut is still going on, so let's see what's happened down here today. Alright, so, for the past 24 hours, the Russians have taken another field. It's only cost them about 500 guys dead. It's this one right here. Look at that. Huge progress. It looks like it'll be taking them another 4 years to end out this battle alone. And they are making it into the direction of Vasyakivka and also Perizny. They're still about 1.5 kilometers to 2 kilometers away from Vasyakivka and about 4 kilometers from Perizny. But we don't really know what their aim is anymore because they are kind of just starting to wander without aim northwards, and they're not really continuing on in the Battle of Bakhmut. Also, along the rest of the front lines, you can see literally nothing has changed, and now that the Russians were able to take the chicken tender, they haven't been able to move off of it. So now it's time to get into the videos from these parts of the front, starting off with our first one, where we saw that a net saved a crew. Would you look at that? It's fishing season, and they caught themselves a bluefin tuna. It came right through the net and arrested itself and the detonator right on top of the SPG. So the crew did not lose their SPG, and they also didn't lose their own lives. So it looks like the nets do work. Comically large nets are now a battlefield tactic that is tried and true and actually does help out. So if you're ever finding yourself in a war zone, just build a comically large net and it ought to help out in some way. So with that, we're going to be moving on from this little interesting picture, and we're now going to be moving on into Soledar itself, where we saw the Russians, of course, using the rolling war crime, the toss. So here's the video. So you see them climbing around on the toss. Now see them elevating the toss and preparing it to fire. And it appears that it's firing 2 rockets at a time. Very interesting. I am Bayraktar. Donated $500. Damn. Now we can see those toss missiles or rockets exploding downrange on this tree line. And you can see the kind of destructive power that these thermobaric rockets have. We now see them packing up the toss. And that's the end of the video. But once again, the moving war crime being used by the Russians on film for about the 70th or 90th time. We're now going to be moving on out of that little video and on into our last one from the northern flank, where we saw a Wagner soldier digging a hole, and it looks like he was digging his own grave. And Maidjar is here to explain it to us.
Jaga!
Oh, Jaga.
Атаку. Хохлы бьют из артиллерии по одиночным целям. Нахуй! Чисто! Тотальний утіль. Били, б'ємо і будемо бити до останнього. Хробака на українській землі. Якогось гівнюка.
Well, I don't think that guy will really need to go and do anything anymore. It looks like he dug his own grave and then he slept in it. So with that, we're now going to be moving on into the center of the line in the Bakhmut area, where, of course, we got the update of Bakhmut from the man of Bakhmut. For all intents and purposes, we have not been getting any updates from the witch. The witch is, of course, okay, and she's out there and alive, but we haven't been getting any to show on this channel, unfortunately, update-wise. I know that a lot of y'all simp for the witch. We will, of course, try and appease y'all if we can sometime in the future, but for now, just check out the man in Bakhmut and his chiseled jawline. And so here's the video.
Вітання, Україна.
Оперативна ситуація на напрямку Солодар-Бахмут. Друзі, по місту Солодару ситуація, як і останнім часом, стабільна, важка, але абсолютно контрольована. Ворог просто суїцидальні штурми здійснює, несе втрати від вогню артилерії, мінометів, але все одно лізе і потрібно розуміти природу всього цього і тих, хто лізе, щоб зрозуміти, що там відбувається. Поки вони не закінчаться і наші підрозділи не виб'ють їх, ніякого кіна не буде. Це буде і сьогодні, і завтра, і післязавтра. Тому злагодженість, згуртованість суспільства, поставка всіх необхідних компонентів для ведення війни, і все буде добре. По-іншому і бути не може. В Солидарі підрозділи закопалися, уперлись в лінію оборони, займаються своєю справою. Піхота, арта, міномети, танчики, авіація. Там наш побратим Мадяр постійно, він краще, чим він інформувати по Солідару ніхто не зможе, тому що у нього є і відеодокази ще плюс до всього. Тому там все зрозуміло. Там зайшли до Мадяра, подивилися. Стосовно міста Бахмут. По Бахмуту лізуть і фронтальними штурмами в лоб намагаються перелізти. І через забудову там з Патрісії Луби, і через Красну Гору, Підгороднє, зі сторони Кліщівки особливо. Там от декілька днів там і авіацію застосовувало, перло, що сумасшедші. Там деякі батареї вистрілювали кількість артилерійські установки снарядів, щоб зупинити цю навалу. Десь місцями там трошки пролазять, продавлюють, залишаючи ворог від трупів після себе. Але це зрозуміло. У них там стоїть задача, і за ціною стоять ніхто не буде. Вартість життя на Мордорі, вона не вартує взагалі нічого, навіть куба дров. Якщо так підходить по-чесному. Тому задача тяжка, але потрібно їх рубати. І рубати, і до упора. Чому взагалі зараз ці події, активізація пішла? Там вже ж пройшла вже не одна хвиля мобілізації, і оці, які там були набрані, зараз їх масово заперли, поназивали їх, називають їх хоч там десантні, не десантні, все одно вони лізуть, вони стріляють, намагаються вбити наших воїнів, і це буде продовжуватися довго ще, поки їх не знищити, ніякого кіна не буде. З цим зрозуміло. По ситуації у Солідарі в Бахмуті лінія оборони тримається, вперлась, там стабільно, тяжко. Але що я хочу зазначити, от наприкінці літа було застосування, ми сиділи в окопах там на східному напрямку, то авіація відпрацьовувала по окопам. Зараз таке ж саме, тобто по інтенсивності. Так що, там все просто і зрозуміло. Треба тримати лінію. Командування знає свої задачі, підрозділи теж. Це працює. Друзі, стосовно медійного поля, тут у нас трошки такий бардак, та не трошки, а дуже. Знову повилазили на екрани там з платформи YouTube, там TikTok і всевозможні експерти, радники, все це. З усіх сторін опять починають кошмарити наше населення. Вводять наступ з Білорусі, з Курська, Стрілки, Білки, корпуса армії, армади, Давайте вже так, включайте розум. Буде наступ, значить буде. Всі готові, варіантів небагато. У нас взагалі з початку війни варіантів небагато, тільки перемогти. І треба гуртуватися, а не зараз там прибрали цю Арестовича. Одні за, другі проти, третю петицію за Льошу. Друзі, соберіть в голову мізки. Ви із 200 героїв України з початку війни, наших 200 героїв, стільки ви знаєте прізвища? Та не стільки, зато ви знаєте Арестовича і Подоляка. Хто вони, на якому напрямку воювали, стільки ворогів вбили. Мене починає рвати, і хай 100 тіктоків забанять, ютубів і телеграм-каналів, але, за це не говорити неможливо. Друзі, У всіх підрозділах в Збройних силах, особливо в техніці, тепловізорах, БПЛА, є потреба. Ще раз наголошую, щоб кожний, хто там не воює, не має важливості, дуже багато людей допомагає. У вас служать в кожному підрозділі ваші знайомі, друзі, рідні. От давайте допомогу точково на той підрозділ, який ви знаєте. Не скидайте гроші шахраям в інтернеті, яких ви не знаєте. Вони повикладають відео, в тому числі киянина, там приліпили картки і ви туди донатите. Кому ви донатите? Ну, українці ж розумна нація, ну стільки може це вже продовжуватися. Всі разом включаємо мізки і працюємо на перемогу. Нічого страшного немає. Іде страшна війна, але вибору вже немає. Все. Буде наступ іще з інших напрямків, не буде наступ. Це вже 55-й вопрос. Всі, хто потрібно, всі на місцях. Працюють, готуються, чекають. У нас є наш отаман Залужний, він знає, що робить. Ваша задача не сіяти паніку, а в інтернеті, в кіберпространстві мочити отих запорєдниковських, не вестись на провокації, і все буде добре. Тримаємо стрій, слава Україні і смерть ворогам.
And with that is the end of the summary of the Battle of Bakhmut and what's been going on in that area. And of course, a huge shout out to the man of Bakhmut, who has been making his summaries a little bit longer each day and a little bit more detailed as well. So with that, we're going to be moving on to the next clip of news we got from the Bakhmut area, where we can also see a burning field near the front line, which makes it look like the land is literal lava. And so here's the clip. You see them looking out there over the field, and it looks like a volcano erupted in Hawaii and the lava is slowly flowing down. But that is a field, a normal one, that is just caught on fire, either due to incendiaries or an artillery shell setting fire to it. With that, we're now going to be moving on to the next bit of news from the Bakhmut area, where we also saw that the Ukrainians, on the Ukrainian Day of Unity, which is today, put up a unit flag of the 24th Mechanized Brigade and the flag of Ukraine over the center of Bakhmut, which is very nice to see, and of course good to know that they're celebrating the holiday. We're now going to be moving on into the next bit of news, where we also saw an evacuation underway with while shelling was occurring.
Куда? А?
See them moving down the street. You hear the artillery exploding almost right overhead.
Братан, выключите этот авторежим.
See someone running down the road. We can see the cameraman now getting up and also following.
Пошли.
You now see them taking the man across a small crossing somewhere in Bakhmut. Artillery shelling still going on in the background. And with that, that's the end of the video, but a huge credit to these volunteers who are still helping to evacuate some of the citizens who have found themselves inside of Bakhmut during this heavy battle. And good to know that they were able to get another one out. We're now going to be moving on into the next clip of news further south and in the area of Opitny, where we saw the Russian shell land close to a Ukrainian trench. And so here's the video. We see the shell explode literally right alongside. You see him getting up to try and look over the trench and see how close that really landed to him. With that, that's the end of that clip. We're now going to be moving on into the next one, where we also saw an ammo dump get blown up behind the lines by the Ukrainians today, which was really nice to see. And of course, you all know who did it. It was our boy Madjar.
Ну, важливо.
Ей!
Стане зрозумілим. Що таке, хрен знати? Речі якісь, ящики, коробки. Незрозуміло. Ви ж бачите, от. І я не бачу, що воно таке здалеку. Але воно тут є. І це важливо виявилося.
Man donated $100.
Let's go!
Let's go!
Опорний
And thank you,
пункт.
man. You're an absolute
Зараз
legend.
сюди летить мальфар з великим кілограмовим зарядом. Будь він не ладен. Розумієте чого? Тим часом я зупинив, щоб все ж таки то дерево роздивитися. От бачимо, тут якийсь мотлах невизначений. От один за гуму сховався, інший тут. Секунд за 12 прилетить мольфар. Кількість вже їх тут значно менша. Ось дивіться. Хробаки чують дрон, починають стріляти. Зараз буде камерою той дьоргати дрона, носити, бо поміхи суттєві. Чух. Неможливо працювати. О, всі присіли. Баф, полетів наверх.
We see something explode. It looks like a kamikaze drone may have hit
Зараз
him.
буду пояснювати. Ось вони чують по звуку, що летить дрон. Починають стріляти. Ось, це дуже уповільнений. Хтось пригинається, цей стріляє. Зараз буде вон там зброя. Почало матуляти. О, жух, дрон кинуло. Повертається. О, бах, всі присіли. От банка полетіла. О. І тут нічого не відбулося. Банка полетіла наверх, ви її бачили. Це відірвалося від мольфара вибухівка і не здетонувала. Он ховається. Ті тут одне одного зараз вітати будуть. Що, он, вітає його, по голові стучить. Молодець, красунчик, що ви...
See them still wandering around in their little trench down there.
Всі довольні,
See them
щасливі.
scooting.
Підари. Дивіться на клоуна.
See, one of them's gotten up and he's deciding to take a little bit of a walk.
Тут Шендія щось збирає.
Just looking for some stuff.
Другий мольфар.
You know, everyone always climbs out of a trench to go looking for stuff in the middle of a barrage, you know, it's no big deal.
Буває, що не взірвалось. Рідко, але буває. Кілограмова вибухівка, їм тут всім було капець. 4 хвилини треба, щоб долетів
We now see the
другий
trench is empty.
мольфар. Оцей кустик уважно. Підарів вже нема, всі внутрі. Зараз буде мольфар. Невлучно. Баф. От від нього.
And a little
відлітає
buff
до
right
стойки.
there as it blew up.
Дивимося, на кустик зайнявся. Бачите?
The ammo is now on fire.
Тут все спокійно, як то кажуть, без втрат. Ще раз. Момент приходу.
Another little explosion, some more fire.
Пуф. Очима пілота.
See the kamikaze drone coming in.
Повільно. Очима пілота. FPV. Пуф. Нас цікавить.
See another one exploding right there.
Полетіли. Де той кустик? О. Займається кустець. Нічого особливого. Просто кустик зайнявся. Потихеньку. Та заряджаємо третього мольфара. Ми знаємо, що там купа хробачя. Кустик горить трошки інтенсивніше.
See the ammo still burning at the bottom of the screen.
Хробаки так і не з'являються. То може бути марно. Під кустиком розгорається. То ви зараз розумієте, бо тут цілий анекдот, блін, з тим кустом. Такий.
Sometimes he hits those screens so hard with that car antenna. I'm always like wondering if it's going to break the screen or not here in a second.
Компенсатор.
Matt gave out that little
Окремо мольфара.
that's a high class aristocrat laugh.
Но з кустом не здогадаєтесь ніколи.
The ammunition's still burning.
От
It's
просто
still
не
burning.
здогадаєтеся і все. От. От що там може бути такого екзотичного? Без руського нічого б не вийшло. А з руським все нормально. Все, зараз прилетить. Пав!
And that one hit dead on the
Удар
entrance.
бінговий.
Lovely.
Тупо
Баф.
бінговий. Але
Буф.
без сіл.
Жик-жика.
Все рівно мене то тішить. Бо влучність удара, зараз ви побачите те, що бачить пілот. Ось. Очима пілота цей 10-очковий виглядав так.
Does that have his name on the drone?
I don't know.
Дивимося уповільнено.
Yeah, it is. My Madyar.
Впевнений, що пілоти FPV мене зрозуміли. Влучність того удара.
You see something burning and exploding inside of that bunker.
100%. 100% із 100 можливих. Дивимося ще раз. Там хробаки. Пав!
Another.
Пав!
And now we're seeing the replay.
Бадабум! Пав! Ті, хто хоч трошки дотичний до FPV, знають, що такого роду влучання є надскладними. І це фактично займається полум'я, починає горіти бліндаж. Кущик свого часу теж далі продовжує розгорюватись потрошки. Ніби де кущик, де підари, що нам до того. Ніт! Компенсатор вам кажу тут. Ха! Зараз побачите.
See that Madyar is getting a little laugh out of the whole thing. You find this funny, man?
Очевидно, він дуже глибокий.
The Russians are just completely gone from this trench. They're not around anymore. Oh, wait a minute, there's one.
Все йде.
Блядь, what happened to my little trench, блядь, covered in tires, сука.
Такий вітер, що просто здуває.
We see him now climbing into the burning bunker covered in tires.
Вилазив. Ось видно, що хтось рухається на вході в бліндаж. Ось. Ось, чітко видно. Ось. Тушить. Запецав я з цим кустиком, так? Зараз розумієте, в чому справа. Щось там навіть трошки взірвалося.
And now you see the fire is getting worse, and there's now a Russian inside that thing, so I don't think he's getting out now.
Не суттєво, але дуже показово. Екіпаж Кліми на 10 балів з 10 виконав потрапляння по надскладній цілі відносно лінії фронта. Це ж задня сторона окопів підарів, ви розумієте, да? Тобто це був обльот, заход і вйоб. Позаду це тил, це ворожий тил. Наша сторона попереду через бруствер, в умовах високого бруствера, в умовах такого складного рельєфу. Я задоволений. Але уважно, куст горів, проснувся бухий Ваня, блядь, русський. Оце номер, блядь.
You see him talking about the burning ammo down there?
Сидів, чи спав п'яний, чи що. І дивіться.
And with that, we're going to pause this video and move on because it's incredibly long, but a huge credit to Madyar and Madyar's birds once again for hitting another ammunition dump, setting off some ammo, and also taking care of a couple of orcs at the same time. And so with that, we're now moving on to the next clip of news further down, where we saw a Russian squad get hit. And let me tell y'all something, this Russian squad's no longer on the quad because they got hit by, I don't know how to make quad rhyme with something that explodes. But anyways, we can see the Russians here walking down this little path. And they're not going to be soon. We can see the artillery falling right beside them. And looks like one guy has already fallen. Another shell hits almost directly on top of him. Another shell lands right on top of him. And we can see that very few of them are left. A lot of them went down. So with that, let's see in the video, and I gotta tell you, Matthew, I wonder if the Russians ever feel down about getting shelled, you know? Because a lot of them fall down and they never get up, so I bet you they gotta be feeling down about the whole thing.
All the time.
All the time. All the time. And so
every day.
Every day, bro, with that. Well, I can't say that. That's copyrighted. But anyways, with that, we're now going to be moving on from the center and down into the Klishkivka area, where we saw the duel of the mortars from the 28th Mechanized Brigade. Also, we got to mute that, but mute, please. We can see the mortar positions here. The 28th Brigade's looking at. And we're about to see them get hit by other mortars firing back at them. Fairly effectively. Quite accurately, to say the least. See the mortars exploding right there, hitting all around, doing the ding. See some black smoke rising, meaning that something's on fire. It's not ammunition, it's something else. See more mortar shells falling and exploding. You see even more falling and exploding. It's just a never-ending barrage of mortar shells. Even more mortar shells. It's all that. That's the end of the clip. But really nice to know that the Ukrainians are getting them all the time. On the grind, all the time. We're now moving out of the Kherson, well, the Bakhmut area. Sorry, not the Kherson area, the Bakhmut area, because that is all the news we have to cover from there today. And of course, not a lot of frontline movements, but a high amount of casualties. We're now going to be moving on down into the southern front itself. And in this area near Huilopol, we saw some Russian forces get hit today by the Ukrainian artillery. Music's nice. So beautiful. We see the Russians getting blown up in the distance. Oh my god, I even died! Well, they should have played this while the Moscow was sinking. Then there's
damn,
just that
son,
guy.
where'd they find this?
Well, that's the end of the video. I gotta tell you, I can play recorder better than that. I'll tell you that. And so with that, we're going to be moving on from that clip, but nice to see they were able to hit the Russians good. We're now going to be moving into the area of Rikov, where we saw a massive ammo depot explosion. Or depot, ammo depot, whatever. Anyways, Mr. Bombastic. I'm gonna have to mute that, but y'all can see right there. Oh. We're gonna drop fire and fury, the likes of which has never been seen before. It's gonna be huge, believe me. Golly. This is impressive. It's gonna go down into the books. The best ammo depot explosion in this month of the war. But I gotta say, it's absolutely impressive. Nobody does explosions like the Russians do. And I gotta say that people are saying that the Russians are the best ones out there for the ammo explosions. And they're not wrong. They're absolutely right. And so with that, we're gonna be moving on for this clip, which I think is one of the last ones of the news for the night. And it is. And so we're now going to be moving up to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on day 334 of the war. And so, here's the speech.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. Перше, головне, про що хочу сьогодні сказати, це справедливість. Справедливість, яка є, до речі, однією з основ соборності. В суспільстві, яке відчуває справедливість, об'єднання людей завжди міцніше. Сьогодні Кабмін України звільнив з посади заступника міністра, який був викритий співробітниками НАБУ. У правоохоронців є всі можливості, щоб провести розслідування і направити це провадження до суду. І я хочу, щоб це було нашим сигналом усім, чиї дії або поведінка порушують принцип справедливості. Звичайно, зараз основна увага – це питання оборони, це питання зовнішньої політики, це питання війни. Але це не означає, що я не бачу, не чую, що говорять в суспільстві на різних рівнях, як на центральному, так і в регіонах. Цей тиждень буде часом відповідних рішень. Вже підготовлені ці рішення. Я не хочу зараз анонсувати їх, але все це буде справедливо. Розумію, що привернуло увагу людей. У кожній ситуації ми будемо детально все розбирати. Те, що стосується енергетики і закупівель, те, що стосується відносин між центральною владою і регіонами, те, що стосується закупівель для військових тощо. Суспільство отримає повну інформацію, а держава зробить необхідні, потужні кроки. Окрім цього, є просування у наших спеціальних служб в роботі щодо людей, які заслуговують як мінімум санкцій за свою діяльність проти України, незалежності і українського народу. Теж будуть відповідні кроки. І це не щось тимчасове, це реальне реагування, це конкретика. Це те, чого ми всі очікуємо від наших інституцій, від держави. Я хочу, щоб це було зрозуміло. Повернення до того, що було колись, до того, як звикли жити різні люди, наближені до державних інституцій, чи ті, хто все своє життя поклав на гонитву за кріслом, повернення не буде. Дякую правоохоронцям, дякую, які захищають закон, інтереси держави, забезпечують справедливість. Дякую журналістам, які розбираються з усіма фактами і встановлюють повну картину. Ми всі маємо, кожен своє, робити для нашої єдності. Сила суспільства, міцність держави поєднуються саме справедливістю. Ще одне. Сьогодні в Україні, в Києві, в Бучі, Бородянці був наш друг Борис Джонсон. Людина, яку не треба якось особливо представляти. Ми разом з ним поспілкувалися зі студентами університету Шевченка. Це теж все доволі символічно, саме у наш день, День Соборності, символічно, бо боротьба за свободу об'єднує різних людей, різні народи. І нашу українську соборність, наше історичне об'єднання, якого ми досягли у перші ж години 24 лютого, ми за минулий рік реально привнесли у міжнародні відносини. Вільний світ об'єднався так, як давно не був об'єднаний. Дуже важливо зберігати єднання, робити все, щоб люди, які цінують свободу, були разом, були дієвими. Ми зацікавлені в тому, щоб Борис та інші наші люди, як він, займалися питанням підтримки України у світі, питанням захисту свободи. Це варто пам'ятати усім українцям. Британський внесок у наш захист надзвичайно вагомий. Я дякую за нього усім британцям, абсолютно усім нашим друзям в Британії, всьому суспільству. Дякую пану прем'єр-міністру Ріші Сунаку за його потужні рішення, за його політику, яка робить вільний світ міцніше. Саме таким нам усім варто зробити цей рік. Роком справедливості для України, роком єднання нас усіх заради свободи і перемоги, роком міцності України та усіх, хто цінує свободу. Дякую кожному нашому воїну, усім, хто на фронті, усім, хто допомагає, усім, хто рятує. Дякую партнерам за життєво необхідну підтримку. Дякую усім, хто розуміє, що пройти цей шлях ми можемо тільки разом. Тільки допомагаючи одне одного. І тільки чесно і справедливо. Слава Україні!
With that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on day 334 of the war in Ukraine, and that wraps up our news summary for today. Thank you all so much once again for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure to cover this news with all of y'all tonight, and to also get to $6.4 thousand on tonight's fundraiser for Razom for Ukraine. Absolutely impressive. I was really blown away by everyone's support to the fundraiser tonight and how far we were able to get it. If we get even farther before the stream ends, I'll still be blown away. But I got to thank you all once again for helping it to get this far, this late in the war. It's been a long time. We've run over 50 fundraisers and we're still blowing through goals. And the Lee Spring Army is still doing the impossible to this day. And so, of course, before we move on to the question segment, make sure to go and click on the link in the description below to go join the new Discord and leave the old one. Leave this place. Get out of here. But anyways, I got to thank you all once again. And also, I would like to make this clear because I don't think people understand this sometimes. Because I went over to Ukraine Matters YouTube channel, and he was talking about he was trying to reach out to us, and I reached out to him on email. And I saw a few comments. There was nothing but positive comments about this channel, which is great. And some people said the channel's great, but it's a 3-hour and 30-minute stream most times, and nobody has time for that. The stream, as far as the news goes, ends now. Like, it's over. An hour and 50 minutes. That's pretty much the whole stream. Beyond this, it's just the question segment, where usually on most weekdays, we would address all the super chats that help to support this channel, and we never want to go without recognizing people who help this thing to keep on running, because I feel like that's just really rude and aloof to just blow that off, and also a lot of people have really interesting things to say, and they're really cool, so we always make sure to cover them. And also, the question segment sometimes doesn't even have to do with the Ukrainian war. Sometimes we just go off on to other things and talk about them. But with that, thank you all once again for watching. I just want to make that clear. The stream may as well be over right now. The next part may as well be an entirely separate stream, but the two have been put into just one continuous stream. And so with that, we are going to be moving on to this question segment, but we've got to recognize the absolute OGs that have supported tonight's fundraiser and helped to get the $6.4 thousand. And so what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so we do have a few top donors here. The highest amount was from Gary Cross that we saw earlier, who put in that $1,500 donation that got us across the finish line on the goal. So thank you very much again, Gary, for that very tremendous support. And as of right now, he is the top donor of the night, so we appreciate it very much. And up next, we have a $500 donation from I Am by Rocker that we also saw earlier. Then we have a $100 from Dustin Straight, a $100 from Madman, Rustin Rott. Then we have a $50 from Kristen Adams and Axel K. And those are the top donors for now. And once again, thank you all for your generosity. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I've got to say, both to I Am by Rockdar and Gary Cross, thank y'all both so much for the massive amount of support. There are loads of people tonight. There's lots of y'all who put in unbelievable amounts of support. But Gary, you took the cake with $1.5 thousand, and I Am by Rockdar coming up second place with $500. That is absolutely unbelievable to think that y'all have supported out this fundraiser that much. And it means a lot to me to know that people do care about this a whole load. It means a lot to me, and that's why we've always been running these fundraisers and we've never stopped. We didn't even stop a fundraiser on Christmas. We ran one on Christmas Day because we were very adamant on never missing one. And it means a whole load to me to know that this channel not just covers the war and does its thing, but it also helps out in a really meaningful way and actually helping to change the course of people's lives in Ukraine and help them out through these nonprofits. And so I got to thank you all both so much once again, and also everyone else who helped out tonight. Because while we can't name off everyone, there were hundreds of people involved tonight in getting this fundraiser up to $6.4 thousand. And some of y'all put in $1 donations, some of y'all put in $10, $5, $2, any amount, even up to $50. A lot of y'all have put in smaller amounts of support. But those small amounts, when combined amongst the hundreds of y'all, equate into the thousands. And that means as much as a massive donation like Gary Cross's at $1.5 thousand. Each one is incredibly valuable in their own worth, and each person does as best as they can in their support. And so I gotta thank y'all so much once again, because it's incredibly impressive to me to think that it got to $6.4 thousand. So thank you to everyone once again, and let's get on into the polls.
All right, and we have 5 polls. That's right, you heard it right. We have 5 polls.
Jesus.
Why does that sound like an infomercial? But anyways.
But wait, there's more.
Yes, and there's even more. We have a 6th poll. No, not really. We just have 5. But the first one says, sending offensive weapons to Ukraine will, quote unquote, lead to a global catastrophe, Russian official says. What are your thoughts? 85% said it's just more empty threats. 5% said unsure and undecided. 7% said they might get crazy this time. And 3% said sending weapons will create a problem. I'm definitely going to go with the first option. It's definitely more empty threats. Russia has been yapping that garbage the entire war, and they've never backed it up. So, Enforcer, what say you?
It's just more empty talk. They've never followed through on any of their threats. I don't think they'll follow through on this one. It's just a whole bunch of whoop-de-doo, la-di-da bullcrap. So with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to, wait a minute, not goes to. The second poll says, Ukraine says that its offensive are being slowed by the addition of Russian reserves. What are your thoughts? It looks like 48% said that is troublesome for Ukraine. 14% said unsure and undecided, and 39% said no cause for alarm. Ukraine will be okay. And on this one, I'm going to say that Ukraine will be fine. Just because they're getting slowed down a little bit is no cause for alarm in my opinion. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say it's no cause for concern either. It is what it is, and it's not really going to be stopping Ukraine from winning the war in the long run. And so with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. And you know what to do, Matthew. We're on to the next one.
And the next one says, with the prolonging of the battles for Soledar and Bakhmut, will the war last longer than expected? It looks like 39% said yes, the war will likely last years. 15% said unsure and undecided. 37% said it will last a few extra months. And 9% said no, the war will conclude soon. On this one, I'm going to have to go with the top option, which is the war will likely last years. I just don't see this war ending anytime soon. It looks like it's going to be one of those really drawn out long wars. And, you know, Russia's going to keep throwing people in as cannon fodder, and Ukraine's going to have to keep doing what they have to do to defend their land. So, Enforcer, what say you?
I still think it'll most likely be rounding out by late summer, but it may also extend further on than that. I'm not really sure though, but we'll just have to keep an eye on it and try and see where it will go. And so with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one says, should Zelenskyy present Midar with a honorary golden car antenna for his dedication? It looks like 70% said yes, upgrade that antenna. 10% said unsure, and 21% said no, that's too Gucci. So this was kind of a funny poll, to be honest. I'm sure most of y'all got that, but I'm going to say wait until the war's over and then give him his golden car antenna. But Enforcer, what say you?
Let's see here. I want to find a Gucci car antenna. Doesn't look like there's a Gucci car antenna. There's a Gucci steering wheel covers. And let's see here. Gucci AR. Gucci AR 15. Doesn't look like there's a Gucci AR.
I think a honey badger would qualify for a Gucci AR.
Oh, here comes the people who was going to say it's a toy. I kind of agree.
Yeah.
But,
come on.
Oh man, you know it looks like a toy, man. I'm sorry, but
now see, Anthony Bestwick actually changed his mind. He told me he went to the range and apparently shot one, I think, and he actually thought it was really accurate.
Well, yeah, it's accurate. It still looks like a toy, though. I mean, like the honey badger. What is it? Pistol, rifle? What's that thing called?
Yeah, it's no longer a pistol. It's classified as an SBR by the good old ATF. Thank you, ATF. I appreciate it.
Oh, well, it looks like a toy to me. I mean, like this thing looks like a Nerf gun, just about, in my opinion. Look how small it is. It's a little itty bitty.
That one looks messed up. It's got a wrong color little cover on it right there on the side.
All I know, Matthew, I don't know about the covers or anything. All I know is that this thing looks like it's about to say, "I'm a little kid," or "Let me do it for you." It looks like it's about to say one or the other. And also, I think a real man's gun should be a Springfield trapdoor. You ever seen one of those, Matthew?
I have not.
This is a Springfield trapdoor.
That looks like something that would pinch the hell out of your fingers.
Why?
I don't know. It has that look to it.
Well, why not just, keep your finger out of the way of the hammer? I mean, that would probably stop it from being a pinchy rifle. Also, this thing fires a Chad round. It fires a 45-70. I'm a big fan of 45-70. I like these. And maybe one day I'll somehow find a way to get one. Although I've never seen them around. Also, you can get reproductions. This is actually a reproduction from Petr Sully, but you can get real ones too. It's just that they're a lot more expensive. And then there's another gun that I want called the Sharps rifle. Right here. This is a cool gun as well. I like it. It's a nice sporting gun, 45-70 cartridge again, but it's a really cool gun all around. Big fan of it, really like it, and I think that that's a real gun. Doesn't look like a toy, or I think the one that doesn't look like the toy the most, Matthew. I think the manliest gun is the Khyber Pass guns. Because
well, you're asking for the manliest looking guns?
These are the macho guns.
All right, let me show you the manliest looking gun.
Are you not looking at these things?
I see that piece of junk.
Look at this thing, man.
That piece is a junk.
Oh man, look at that. The man. Have you ever wanted to find yourself the manliest gun you can ever get? Well, take a
Pull
look
up
at
the
these
Daniel
right
Defense Mark 18. That's the manliest looking gun.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Daniel Defense Mark 18. Yeah, I'm sure it is. Oh, yeah, that's supposed to be manly. Huh?
That's nice.
Oh, get the hell out of here.
And I guess it's now considered an SBR thanks to the ATF as well.
Thank you, ATF. They always just change the rules on you. It's always a little whoop-de-doo. I mean, I guess if you just buy a gun and you don't really pay attention a lot to the laws, you just become a felon eventually. But anyways.
Yeah, it's messed up. At the time I bought the thing, it was considered a pistol. Now I have 120 days to comply, or you can get charged with a felony. That's messed up.
And how much does it cost to comply? Does it cost anything, or is it free?
Oh, they waived the tax stamp for you to register it. It's just the hassle of having to register the thing.
Oh, well, that's always good to know. And so with that, I think we are on to the next one, the next poll, I think.
Yes, we are actually, and it's the final poll, and it says Putin has been notably absent from public view in recent weeks. What do you think is the reason? It looks like 43% said he's fearful of assassination, 26% said he has nothing good to say to Russia, 14% said unsure and undecided, and 18% said maybe he is dead, as Ukraine suggested at one point. On this one, I'm going to say unsure, because assassination has always been a concern of Putin. That's why he sits so far away from people, I'd imagine. So I'm going to say unsure. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'm going to say he's probably not dead, because that would be a big deal immediately. So I think he's still alive. I think he's just scared and hiding or crying or something, but he's not dead. I'll definitely say that. Also, Panama and Floyd asked a question. He said, isn't the Sharps the one that all those buffalo hunters used in the 19th century? Why, yes. Yes, it was. Well, actually, they used all kinds of rifles to kill the buffalo, but the one they would use out in the plains, specifically, would be the Sharps rifle, again, because the Sharps rifle had quite a range on it. And also, here's one with one of those old cute scopes on it. That is not a broom handle, that is actually a scope. And that's what they used to look like back in the 1870s. They would go around and they would kill off the buffalo in the hundreds of thousands. They almost drove them extinct. And it was largely due to this gun. So yes, but the reason I like it is because it was the original target, I guess, like rifle range kind of gun, and also the original one that would be used in marksmanship competitions, which is pretty cool. And also, I think it's a neat design. I like the little rolling block thing where you flip the lever down and that thing flips down. And that originally came from my like of the Martini Henry rifle, which was also really cool because you could have a Martini and a rifle at the same time. Like, look at that thing. It was a British service rifle, I believe, in the 1870s, in the 1880s. It was later on replaced by, I believe, the Lee Metford and then the Lee Enfield. But a really neat gun nonetheless. It uses a very odd round. It's 303 round, a different kind than the one that was used in the Lee Enfield SMLE Mark III. But it's a neat one. I'll say that. Also, you can see, I forgot who this guy is. I think he's a guy on YouTube, but I forgot his exact...
A red coat?
I guess. I mean, he's in Canada, but he does all kinds of stuff with guns. But I forgot his name. Anyways, neat gun all around, and I like it. I just think it's cool. I like that era of guns where it was like a breech loading, kind of like flip open thing, whether it be like a rolling block or a literal trapdoor. I just find those things to be kind of cool. But with that, we are on to, I believe, the next poll or the next question.
So that was all 5 polls. And before we move into our live chat questions once again, big shout out to Hal Rose for putting in a 50. We're up to 6.6 thousand on the fundraiser. So 1.6 thousand above goal. And I did the math in my head that time.
Hey.
But anyways, we're on to our first live chat question, which goes to, looks like Carmen V, who says, did you know that the minister killed in the helicopter crash was in charge of anti-corruption operations in Ukraine?
I did not know that, and I would have to do a little bit more research to find out more about that. So with that, I'm going to have to declare ignorance on that one because I don't really know. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Alex for Alex, who says they should make some incendiary grenades for hole-in-ones, or would those be against the Geneva Convention?
I don't think those would be against the Geneva Convention as long as they could prove that the tank was abandoned and there was no one in it, because it doesn't forbid incendiaries being used against equipment and vehicles. It just forbids it being used against infantry to burn them alive or people in general. And so with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well. And we are on to the next one. And people are saying that is incorrect. About what? What?
I think we ought to research it and look at it right now, because I see some folks saying it was true and not, and I would like to know about the anti-corruption minister supposedly getting killed, allegedly.
Minister of the Interior, Ukraine. And let's see here. Ministry of Internal Affairs is the ministry of the Ukrainian government that oversees the interior affairs of Ukraine. The ministry carries out state policy for the protection of rights and liberties of citizens, and investigates unlawful acts against the interests of society and state, fights crime, provides civil order, ensures civil security and traffic safety, and guarantees the security and protection of important individuals. It's a centralized agency headed by the Minister of Internal Affairs. The ministry works closely with the Office of the General Prosecutor of Ukraine. It oversees the National Police of Ukraine, the State Emergency Service of Ukraine, the State Border Guard Service of Ukraine, and the State Migration Service, which is pretty much the same thing as the Border Guards here in America. Formerly, the ministry directly controlled Ukrainian National Law Enforcement Agency, termed the Militia. This changed in 2015 in the aftermath of the Euromaidan, with the introduction of reforms by Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko to reduce corruption, whereby the militia was replaced by the national police. Ukraine's militia was widely regarded as corrupt, and it had received accusations of torture and ill treatment. The State Emergency Service was transferred under the jurisdiction of the ministry in 2014. So, it appears that this thing is about as wide in scope as one could possibly get. So in a way, I guess you could say that they were trying to root out corruption, but at the exact same time, they apparently oversee traffic laws as well. So you can also go in that direction, that they killed the minister in charge of traffic laws.
And also, there was a whole bunch of people that got killed in that helicopter crash. So he happened to be on board, and I will say, like, right on his face, that kind of looks a little strange, but there was a whole bunch of other people that were in the government that got killed.
Let me go pull up Ukraine helicopter crash, and let's see all of the other ministers that were on board. So I believe I got my information originally from Reuters, so let's see if they have the list. Let's see. Kirill Budanov, the military intelligence chief, was also on board the helicopter and was killed as well. So, you know, you can kind of go in any direction you want. You can just pick anyone from the helicopter and say that they were killed for A, B, and C. But considering that there were so many different ministers on that helicopter involved in different affairs of the government, I would say that it was all an unfortunate coincidence. You know, every time a politician gets killed, it's not because of, you know, there just being a reason for it. You know, like Abraham Lincoln, he just got his head blown off at the end of the Civil War because some guy was unhappy that the Confederacy had lost. You know, there wasn't really any giant motive behind it, like, oh, you know, the Congress was trying to have Lincoln killed because, you know, he's going to do A, B, and C. Nah, he just got shot, and it was unfortunate, you know. And also, I'm trying to think, there were some people that got killed in the U.S. government at one point in some kind of an airplane crash. I can't remember the exact instance, but it was just an airplane crash, you know, and it's always something because people nowadays have gotten so tied in, usually to reality TV, having nothing better to talk about than conspiracy theories, to think that every time a government official is killed, it can never just be an unfortunate incident. It always has to be some kind of a conspiracy theory or a plot going on in the background. One thing we do know is that on the day of that helicopter crash, it was heavily overcast. It was the ground cover, as far as fog was concerned, was incredibly heavy, and so it may have been pilot error that led to that helicopter to crash. Because, let's see. So with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next from the live chat, we have a question from Jay Bagwell. Who says, wouldn't it be crazy if a Wagner unit with criminal record was destroyed by the M2 Bradley named criminal record, with the little suggestive face there?
You know, I would say it's not that going to be that far off. I'm sure some Wagner guys are going to get blasted and iced by a criminal record. But also, I think that we always need to make sure to keep the Bradley called consent nearby, because I'm sure that consent will be needed for the criminal record to do its thing. So with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, and we are on to the next one. Also, we will be answering questions until 11:30 local time or 12:30 Eastern time, and so with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next question goes to Wes Downer, who says, Enforcer, if Erdogan wins another term in May, do you think there will be a military coup in Turkey?
I don't know. I don't really keep up with Indian. I'm sorry, not Indian. For some reason, I was thinking about the country of India. I don't keep up with Turkish politics all too well. So I wouldn't be, extremely positive whether there'd be a coup or not. I really wouldn't have any idea to know because I don't really know the political lay of the land and how things are going in Turkey right now to say whether that'll happen or not. And so with that, I hope that does address the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a question from Packrat, who says the video of the Russian reporter that clearly looked like a soldier who got wounded. Read it was possibly artillery or mortar fragments. Only hear a small pop. Was it friendly, maybe?
Actually, I got a video of that from Operator Starsky, who enjoyed the video himself and showed it to me. It looked like a Russian reporter got hit by a bullet that was fired and skimmed them a little bit, and they got wounded from it. I don't think it was a mortar blast or artillery, because that would have been a lot louder. You would have heard a lot more subsequent shrapnel hitting nearby objects, and you only heard the one crack of the bullet that was passing right by. So I think it was just an individual bullet fired from a distance that somehow almost directly hit the reporter. So with that, I hope that does address the question fairly well. And as far as reporters are concerned, that was hardly even a reporter. That may as well have been a Russian soldier, because they didn't even have press anywhere on their bulletproof vest or helmet. They were literally dressed up in ratnik camo like they were a soldier of the Russian army. So, you know, if they got shot, there's really no way you can say, oh my god, they killed a journalist, because they weren't even dressed like one. They hardly looked like him. But with that, we're on to the next one. I hope that answers the question fairly well, Packrat, who is still packing the rats. And let me ask you, Packrat, how is that going? Or is it really easy to pack rats, or is it a little bit more difficult? Anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
Oh, and I just saw Janet Hines say, I was just watching Demo Ranch, and there are apparently a lot of new rules from YouTube about showing guns and gun accessories. I wonder if that was included in the new terms that they made us agree.
Hang on, wait a minute. Demolition Ranch? What's he got? What's going on out there? I told you, Matthew, they were going to be cracking down on that sometime around. Matthew laughed at me when I said that before, and now you said that, that might be serious. So, apparently, he says YouTube deleted this video, but it was uploaded 12 days ago, and this one hasn't been taken down. So, I don't know if that's true. Maybe he just said it or something. We'll go watch the very start of his video to see. Okay.
Well, be careful showing it if they deleted it.
Well, that's true, but as long as we don't see a gun, I mean, I guess it's okay.
Your host.
And if they deleted it, then how are we watching it? You know, it's been 12 days. If they deleted the first one, why haven't they deleted the second one in 12 days? Considering it's gotten 1.2 million views, I'm sure that someone at YouTube headquarters would have seen it, considering it got that much traction in such a short time. You know, that's what I'm saying, man.
Matt, today we're gonna.
Let's see here. Let me skip forward. I'll show this.
They're demonetizing showing 30-round magazines, apparently.
How in the world do you count that? Like, let's see here.
Jay Lancaster said you can show the guns, but you can't show any type of assembly or modification. That's so stupid.
Interesting. All right. So with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you for sharing that with us, so that way we know.
Yes, and sadly, that will derail a little of the plans I had for my channel, sadly. But I have to find something else to make a video about.
Well,
but
man, I told you it was coming around, man. I've been telling you for a while. I was like, it's coming around. I was like, I don't want, I've been making this clear, and this has actually been something that Matthew's and me have been getting into, I guess you could say, debates or arguments about behind the scenes. I was like, I don't really want gun content on this main channel, because YouTube is going to come through and start axing that stuff, because they're already rearing and getting ready to do that. Man, he's like, no, they weren't. And then he uploaded a video, and he got 10,000 views on his channel. And I don't know if that was mostly y'all, or if that was just hitting the algorithm well. And then
it hit the algorithm.
Probably, because we were sitting there for a little bit, and we were like, well, it got 10,000 views, so, you know, it looks like they're not really doing anything about it, considering that he didn't have any subscribers. Getting 10,000 views and only having like 300 subscribers was very good, incredibly good. And so we were like, well, maybe we can make videos for the main channel here. And we probably still will. It's just that we're going to have to figure out what YouTube is doing now and try and work around it, I guess. So and you know what's something that's fairly interesting about it, Matthew, is that we'll probably upload a gun video, and then they'll say we're doing restricted ads on it, and they'll run normal ads, and then they'll keep most of the AdSense. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
Yeah, YouTube's way of keeping content off they don't want to see is taking the money from the proceeds.
Yeah.
That'll really solve the problem. Just take the money for themselves. But anyways, on to the next question. We have one from Thomas O'Hanlon, who says, Enforcer, do you think the U.S. should send a C-130 along with a Rapid Dragon weapon system? What say you?
I don't know what the Rapid Dragon weapon system is. If you're talking about a gunship, let me see. Rapid Dragon system is a disposable weapons module. I don't think so, because this seems to be when you have uncontested airspace and air superiority, and you do not have that in Ukraine. So the C-130 would most likely get shot down before it ever made it anywhere to drop these bombs. So I would say most likely not. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, big shout out to Tangen for putting in a $100 donation to the fundraiser, getting us up to 6.8 thousand on that. Very generous of you, Tangen, and we appreciate it very much. And also, thank you to Anonymous for putting in a 50. We appreciate it very much. And up next, we have a question from C-Fay, who says, did you see where the German foreign minister said today that Germany wouldn't stop Poland if they wanted to send the Leopards?
We did see that, and that was talked about earlier in the news. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Roger H., who says, why don't we send some Abrams tanks to Ukraine? And if they are too difficult to maintain, let them use them as paperweights if they want, but Germany would have to put up or shut up.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they could. I mean, you know, I guess we could send them and they wouldn't really be usable, but hopefully that'll make the Germans send their Leopard 2s as well. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. I'm blowing through these quickly tonight, but I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Gregory Pennick, who says, Enforcer, is there any truth Russia moved the big attack to spring?
I'd have no idea. It doesn't even look like they're preparing for a big attack in most places right now. There's nothing going on in the north or the northeast. We've seen a buildup in the south, but that's been both by the Ukrainians and the Russians, and it's supposed that the Ukrainians were the first to start that buildup, so we're not really sure. But with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
The next one is from Superbunker 9000, who says, Enforcer, there's a picture of a destroyed S-400 air defense system somewhere in the Zaporizhia region. Can you confirm?
We did confirm it. We actually confirmed that, I think, on last night or the day before a stream. It was an S-400 that was destroyed in the first of the war. So really impressive, actually. And also, thank you for being here tonight, Superbunker, and I hope we answered that question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a question from Michael Johnson, who says, Enforcer, Denny's said something today about the Orc Spring offense is called off or something, question mark?
I don't really know, because hearing about offensives in advance is something that doesn't really happen, so it's kind of all guesswork to see whether they're doing something or not. So I don't really know, because I never really thought there was one on in the first place to even say that that was going to happen. I've been denying that the entire time, that it would ever happen. So with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And on to the next one. John Doe asks, what does Enforcer look like? Just go to the Christmas address or our face reveal, and you'll see. I've been on camera a couple of times now. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one... Oh, and the next one goes to Jerry S., who says Russian forces captured Krasnopolivka? Question mark.
I don't know. Let's pull that up on the map. Krasnopolivka in the Donetsk Oblast. Yeah, they did. If you want to call this anything worth capturing, it's like 10 houses in a small little storage building over here. So yes, they did. We do know that they've done that. We actually showed that today on the map.
Comrade, we are in charge of the neighborhood now.
Oh, comrade, it's time to start filming Mr. Putin's neighborhood, bled. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. All the neighbors are running away from me. Is their house gone? The foundation is there. I am going to commit some war crimes. I'm going to steal some stuff. Would you join me in stealing the shit? Bled. Hello, everybody. I am Uncle Putin, and I am in your neighborhood today to steal your shit. It's very nice stuff. Washing machine, toilet paper. Very exquisite, very gourmet. But you know one thing that Mr. Putin likes more than anything else? Power. Ding, ding. Oh, is that King Friday the 13th, or as we call him in Russia, Monsieur Frost. Oh, it is. What type of message does Monsieur Frost have for us? Oh, bleed. Let's see. Oh, he froze his firstborn child to death. Oh, bleed. That's exquisite. Beautiful. And also, kids, let me tell you the story about dying and why you should die. But anyways, yes, to answer the question, they did take it, but it's literally just a small street with some houses on it. And so with that, we are on to the next one. I hope y'all enjoyed that entire made-up Mr. Putin episode.
Indeed. And up next, we have a question from Activista, who says, what did you think the drop-dead date is for the mobilization to begin for Russia to have some sort of spring offensive?
It depends on how long they can stretch it out, because they could maybe stretch it out for another couple of months, because they've been able to do it fairly well so far, but we don't really know. So it could be maybe a month from now. It could be a couple of months. We're not really sure. And so with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Thomas O'Hanlon once again, who says, did you see that female Russian influencer that was hit in Soledar? What happened to Russian female propagandist who got shot in Soledar?
I don't really know what happened to her. She just got shot and the video ended, and we haven't heard anything since. The Russians are very secret about that kind of stuff, so we'll probably never find out, but I'm assuming she got wounded, went home, and cried about it. Maybe she shouldn't have been wearing nothing but military gear, and maybe identified herself as press, and maybe she wouldn't have been shot at. And so with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Robert Whitehead, who says, Enforcer, do them Bradleys have the missile system on them?
Them Bradleys do have them.
And also, Robert did say the Bradleys. I added the them part, by the way, so Robert didn't speak like that.
Oh, okay. Bradley M3. All right, here we go. They always come with the missile system attached. It's always attached. So the answer to that question is yes, and hopefully they'll be using it quite well. Look at those little things go. They're so neat. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Christina Persson, who says, what if the Ukrainian army provided a lot of white flags on poles on the killing fields in Bakhmut? Would the poor Mobics pick them up and march toward the Ukrainian front lines to be POWs?
Maybe they would. I'm not really sure, but I would think that'd be an interesting attempt to see if they would, is to just start dropping white flags by drone on top of them and see if they'll accept it or not, or if they'll deny it and then get blown away by bomblets or artillery. That would be an interesting thing to see, and I think that's something they ought to try. And so with that, I hope that does answer that question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And Carl Elwell said, who's the genius who decided to put a CAPTCHA that doesn't work and throws errors on the new Discord server? Can't join unless I'm determined to be a homo sapien. Well, I think it's because of the large amount of people that's trying to join. We have to have that there to block the bots, otherwise the Discord can get DDoSed. But I think the mod team has told me that they're looking into it right now to see what the problem is. And I think they got it working for a second, and then it went back to having a problem once again. So keep trying, and it should be fixed pretty soon. But I'll let you know if I have an update.
And so with that, I think we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Rufus Irvin, who says, Enforcer, what about Russian mafia involvement in the war?
I wouldn't know. Why in the world did I turn into that guy from the HBO Chernobyl show, Matthew? You know, the guy who was in charge of the whole thing? I think 3.6 Ronkin is not great, it's not terrible. You know, that guy, you know who I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I've been around, I'm an unimportant person. I never mattered. You know, and he's sitting there at the end of the, anyways. Can you reread that one again real quick?
Okay. What about Russian mafia involvement in the war?
I wouldn't really know about it because we don't hear a lot about the mafia. They are in the criminal underworld, and usually the criminal underworld is a fairly quiet place to begin with, so we don't really get an exact amount of details on how the mob or the mafia is kind of operating down and around that area. So I hope that addresses the question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And I was thinking in my mind, like Jet Fusion said, the Kremlin is already the mafia.
Yeah, I was thinking
the Russian mafia has been involved since the get-go.
I mean, like, that's true. That's true. And it's kind of funny to think of that. Also, I'm sorry, everyone. For some reason, I've mentally checked out at like 10:40 tonight. So I'm sorry, but I'm kind of spaced out right now. I think the exhaustion of doing everything nonstop every day is getting to me. But with that, we're on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a question from Carta, who says, were those from USA or from an intermediary? Bradley's, I'm assuming.
Bradley's, I'm assuming. I would say they're from the United States, and they're just being transported through Poland by a Polish train. So with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well, and I think we are now on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Don Lupnitz, who says, Enforcer, what about the 400 Challenger tanks in Jordan that were retired?
Good question. I don't know what will happen to them. I don't know if the Jordanians are really big fans of Ukraine and supporting them. They may be a neutral country, but maybe they could send some to Ukraine, maybe. But I don't really know for certain because I don't know a lot about the Jordanian Challenger 2s. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question somewhat well. I think they never got Challenger 2s. I think they only have Challenger 1s, but you could still send those. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Anthony Bestwick. He says, I want your brother to pick 4 items from the USA inventory he thinks will aid Ukraine to win the war from memory, and then tell him my choices.
All right, so Anthony Bestwick wants to play a game. I want to play a little game. Let's see. The first thing I would say, F-16s. Second thing, attackums. Third thing, I would say the Abrams, and the fourth thing would be, let me peruse the American inventory in my head. Let me peruse it in my head. Let me think. I don't know what to think no more, man. But let me see. I can't think of a fourth one. So sadly, I can only pick 3 because I can't think of a fourth one because we've almost sent everything we can rather than those 3. So what are Anthony Bestwick's picks?
He said his 4 are the F-16, the M124, the GUA-19s, or M30 MLRS rockets. And he would like your opinion on the M124 and also the GUA-19s.
The M124?
Yeah.
M124 gun? The minigun?
I think he means the minigun.
Not that bad. It's very expensive to use though, and they're fairly expensive pieces in themselves. So a little expensive, a little high maintenance, but still not that bad. Not that bad. The M30 missile. Let's see. That is, I believe they already have those actually. They're already using those in HIMARS right now. So that's a pretty good one. And then the next one, I believe the M1 Abrams was in that list, wasn't it?
No.
So what else was in that list again beyond the M134 and the missile?
He wanted your opinion on the M134 and also the GUA-19.
GUA-19, the GAU-19, which is another minigun. Once again, somewhat expensive, somewhat harder to use, but you could use these somewhere. The 3-barrel version looks really cool, though, I will admit. That is pretty neat. So with that, I hope that answers that fairly well, Anthony. And also, thank you for being here tonight and asking a pretty good question. I think miniguns would be interesting to see over there, but I don't know how effective they would be, because we don't see miniguns getting used much anymore. It seems like they've kind of been phased out of infantry use for the most part, and we've now gone back to just conventional machine guns and things like that. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question fairly well, and now it's time for us to get on to the final question of the night. And so with that, who is the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night? Well, Tangen throws in another 1,000 Norwegian kroner, which is equivalent to, I think, $100 US exactly.
Correct. And that brings us to 6.9 thousand on the fundraiser. If Psyops was here, he'd be making a nice little joke about that right now. But I don't think Psyops is here tonight.
Nah,
but
I think
anyways,
he took the night off.
I think he did. But for the final question of the night, which goes to, let's see, John Albrecht, who says, Matt, an enforcer, I need help. I'm taking down my fat Santa display, aka Putin, from the roof along with my lights, and I need help with putting up a Panzer S1 to replace Santa.
Well, I don't know where we could find one. I'm sure we could get one somewhere. It couldn't be that hard to get one out of Russia. So maybe we can all get together one day and fundraise for a Panzer to get put on your roof. I don't think it'll be that hard. I don't think it'll be that expensive. And also, I think your roof can handle the weight. So with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. And it is the end of tonight's stream. I thank you all so much once again for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure to go through this question segment with all of y'all to raise almost $7,000 for Razom for Ukraine, nearly $2,000 above our goal, and to also cover the news with y'all tonight as well. If y'all did enjoy, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Make sure to also hit the like button, because we run these streams every single day of the week, except for Mondays, which is tomorrow. We'll be taking Monday off, but we'll be back on Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time once again to cover the next 24 hours of the war in Ukraine, and, well, the next 48 hours of the war in Ukraine, and let y'all know what's been happening since then. And so with that, I will see you all on Tuesday. Good night, take care, good luck, and Slava Ukraini!
Yes. The Lviv Street Army sends its regards.
Ще не вмерла України ні слава, ні воля. Ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці. Запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького